Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was chosen by the ancient Dino spirits and became the Golden Dragon Ranger, Naruto x Kira Ford, Power Rangers Dino Thunder. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Dimensional Resonance. The valley still bore the scars of that final battle. Massive craters punctuated the landscape where godlike powers had collided. R flowed differently now through the ravine, diverted by new channels carved by techniques powerful enough to reshape the earth itself. Naruto Uzumaki stood at the edge of the cliff, blue eyes fixed on the spot where two massive statues had once faced each other across the divide, monuments to a rivalry as old as the hidden leaf itself. Now there was only rubble and memory. 3 months since the end of the Fourth Great Ninja War. 3 months of rebuilding, of funerals, of diplomatic meetings and peace treaties. 3 months of being hailed as the savior of the shinobi world, the hero who united the 5 great nations against an impossible enemy. And yet here he stood, alone with the wind. "I thought I'd find you here," came a voice from behind him. Naruto didn't turn, didn't need to. He'd sensed Kakashi's approach long before his former sensei had spoken. "Just thinking," Naruto replied, his voice lacking its usual exuberance. The endless energy that had defined him since childhood seemed dimmed, like a flame struggling against the wind. Kakashi moved beside him, his single visible eye surveying the devastation below. His silver hair rustled in the breeze, longer now that he'd taken the Hokage's position. "The Reconstruction Committee wants your input on the memorial design." "Why?" "I'm not good with that stuff." "Because people listen when you speak." Kakashi's voice remained casual, but his words carried weight. "Your opinion matters now, Naruto. More than you realize." The blonde shinobi sighed, running a hand through hair that had grown shaggy in recent months. At 17, his features had sharpened, hardened by war and responsibility. The whisker marks on his cheeks seemed deeper somehow, more pronounced against skin tanned by countless days on battlefields. "I'll come back tomorrow. There's something strange about this place. I needed to check it out." Kakashi's posture shifted slightly, the subtle change that Naruto had learned meant curiosity. "Strange how? Can't you feel it?" Naruto closed his eyes, extending his senses outward. Since merging with the Nine Tails, with Kurama, his perception had expanded beyond ordinary human limitations. "The energy here is fluctuating, pulsing, like something's trying to break through." Kakashi remained silent for a moment, attempting to sense what his former student described. "I don't detect anything unusual. But your sensory abilities far exceed mine now." Naruto frowned, stepping closer to the cliff edge. "It started 3 days ago. Faint at first, but growing stronger. It's not chakra. Not exactly. But it's familiar somehow." "Familiar how?" The young shinobi shook his head, frustration evident. "I don't know. It's like remembering something I've never experienced." His hand unconsciously moved to his stomach, where the seal that had once contained Kurama now existed as a complex network of energy pathways throughout his body. Inside his mind, he felt the massive fox stir. "There is ancient power here," Kurama rumbled, his voice resonating through their shared consciousness. "Older than me, older than the sage himself, perhaps." Naruto relayed this to Kakashi, whose visible eye narrowed with concern. "Perhaps you should keep your distance until we can investigate properly," the Hokage suggested. "We've had enough world-ending threats for one lifetime." A ghost of Naruto's familiar grin flickered across his face. "When have I ever been good at keeping my distance from trouble?" Kakashi sighed, recognizing the futility of his advice. "At least don't do anything reckless without backup. The war may be over, but that doesn't mean we can afford to lose you." Naruto nodded, but his attention had already drifted back to the strange energy pulsating below. "I'll be careful." As Kakashi departed, Naruto sat cross-legged at the cliff's edge, closing his eyes and entering a meditative state. Since the war, he'd become more disciplined with such practices, necessity rather than preference. The stillness helped him process the losses, the changes, the weight of expectation that now rested on his shoulders. "What are you sensing, Kurama?" he asked internally. The fox's massive form shifted in their shared mindscape. Something primordial. Something that existed when the world was young. Asterisk. Dangerous. Asterisk. All power is dangerous in the wrong hands. Asterisk came the cryptic reply. Naruto focused deeper, letting his consciousness extend toward the anomaly. For hours, he remained motionless as the sun arced across the sky, casting long shadows that etched and retracted like living things across the valley floor. Only when twilight painted the horizon in purples and deep blues did he finally open his eyes. "It's getting stronger," he murmured to himself, rising to his feet with newfound determination. Whatever this was, he couldn't ignore it any longer. He needed a closer look. 3,000 miles away and a universe apart, Kira Ford ducked beneath the sweeping tail of a creature that, by all rights, shouldn't exist. The irony wasn't lost on her. A year ago, she'd been focused on college applications and music scholarships. Now he was in a yellow spandex suit fighting monsters as a Power Ranger. Life had a funny way of taking unexpected turns. "Kira, on your left." Connor's voice came through her helmet calm as a blur of red streaked past her, delivering a flying kick to the reptilian monstrosity that had nearly taken her head off. "I saw it," she snapped back, frustration edging her voice as she spun her Terra grips in a defensive pattern. These creatures, Tyrannodrones, as Dr. O called them, seemed different today. Faster, more coordinated, almost like they were being controlled by a more intelligent force. The abandoned quarry outside Reefside echoed with the sounds of battle. 4 Rangers, red, blue, yellow, and black, faced off against 24 enhanced Tyrannodrones and something new, something they hadn't encountered before. A towering humanoid figure with iridescent scales that shifted colors like oil on water. "Guys, we need to focus on the big one." Dr. Oliver's voice commanded through their comms. The Black Ranger moved with the precision of experience, his movements economical and decisive compared to his younger teammates. Ethan, the Blue Ranger, deployed his Tricera shield to block a barrage of energy projectiles. "I'm trying to scan it, but I'm getting weird readings. It's like it's not fully here." Kira sprinted toward a rock outcropping, using it as a springboard to launch herself into the air. Her suit enhanced her natural agility, allowing her to twist in mid-jump and unleash a Terra scream at the cluster of Tyrannodrones below. The sonic attack shattered the ground beneath them, sending several tumbling into a newly formed crater. But as she landed, her yellow Dino gem gave a sudden, painful pulse against her wrist. "Ah," she gasped, momentarily distracted by the sensat ion, something between an electric shock and a deep vibration that seemed to resonate with her bones. "You guys feel that?" Connor called out, briefly looking down at his own morphed wrist. "The gems are reacting to something, drive," Oliver confirmed, his voice tense as he dispatched 2 more Tyrannodrones with precise strikes. The scaled humanoid tilted its head, regarding them with multifaceted eyes that reflected light like prismatic mirrors. When it spoke, the sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. "The dimensional barrier's thin," it said in a voice like grinding crystal. "The awakening approaches. The master stirs." "Yeah, well, tell your master we're not interested," Connor retorted, charging forward with his Tyranno staff extended. The creature moved with liquid grace, sidestepping the attack and catching the Red Ranger's weapon mid-strike. "Primitive vessels," it hissed. "You know nothing of the power you channel. The dragons of old will bow before Xanazoth." It twisted, sending Connor flying through the air to crash into Ethan. Both Rangers tumbled to the ground in a tangle of limbs and frustrated curses. Kira exchanged a quick glance with Dr. Oliver, a silent communication born from months of fighting together. She darted left while he went right, attempting to flank the creature. But as she moved, her Dino gem pulsed again, stronger this time, sending a wave of disorienting energy through her suit. The creature's head snapped toward her, its prismatic eyes widening. "The yellow one resonates," it said, suddenly focused entirely on her. "Yes, your frequency will serve as the beacon." Before anyone could react, the creature crossed the distance between them with impossible speed. Its scaled hand wrapped around Kira's throat, lifting her off the ground. The contact sent waves of excruciating pain through her body as her gem pulsed frantically against her wrist. "Get off me," she choked out, struggling to break free. "Your energy will open the pathway." The creature intoned, its free hand beginning to glow with an otherworldly light. Be honored, yellow vessel. Your sacrifice will herald the master's arrival. Through her visor, Kira saw Dr. Oliver and the others rushing toward her, but they seemed to be moving in slow motion. The creature's glowing hand pressed against her chest, directly over her heart, and she felt something cold and invasive begin to seep through her suit, seeking the energy of her Dino gem. In that moment, as pain threatened to overwhelm her senses, Kira experienced something beyond physical sensation, a sudden awareness of vast distance collapsing, of barriers thinning, of something answering her gem's desperate pulse from impossibly far away. The sky above the quarry tore open. Naruto descended into the valley with practiced ease, his chakra control allowing him to walk vertically down the cliff face. The strange energy pulsations had grown stronger as the day faded into evening. Concentrated at a point near where he and Sasuke had exchanged their final blows during that fateful battle years ago. Now, as stars began to appear in the darkening sky, he could almost see the anomaly, a subtle distortion in the air, like heat waves rising from sun-baked stone, but with an iridescent quality that reminded him of oil floating on water. Be cautious, Kurama warned as Naruto approached the phenomenon. This is not natural, When is anything in my life natural? Naruto muttered aloud, crouching to examine the distortion more closely. From this distance, he could hear something, faint sounds that seemed to come from within the anomaly itself. Voices, combat. He extended his hand cautiously, fingers hovering inches from the shimmering distortion. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. The moment his fingertips brushed the phenomenon, a surge of foreign energy shot up his arm, intertwining with his chakra network in ways that felt simultaneously invasive and strangely familiar. His vision filled with golden light as images flashed through his mind. Ancient creatures with scaled bodies and powerful jaws, a massive beast with golden scales and eyes that burned like the sun. And most disconcertingly, a yellow-suited figure being held aloft by a creature with shifting, prismatic scales. Naruto! Kurama roared within him, but the fox's voice seemed distant, drowned out by a different call, something primal and ancient that resonated not just with his chakra, but with something deeper, something connected to the very nature of his being. The distortion expanded suddenly, enveloping his extended arm, then his shoulder, then his entire body. Naruto felt himself being pulled forward by an irresistible force, the world around him stretching and compressing in impossible ways. He tried to channel chakra to resist, but the energy responded to his attempt by pulling even harder, as though his power was exactly what it had been seeking. What the hell were the last words he managed before the valley of the end disappeared around him, replaced by a twisting tunnel of light and color that seemed to extend infinitely in all directions. For a timeless moment, Naruto existed in a state of pure energy, his consciousness stretched across what felt like multiple realities. He glimpsed worlds and dimensions beyond comprehension, some eerily similar to his own. Others so alien he couldn't process what he was seeing. Through it all, that golden presence called to him, guiding him through the chaotic maelstrom of intersecting realities. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the journey ended. Naruto felt himself materialize, solid matter coalescing from energy as he was ejected from the dimensional pathway with explosive force. His shinobi instincts kicked in immediately, allowing him to orient himself midair and land in a three-point stance on unfamiliar ground. The first thing he registered was the battle. 4 figures in brightly color suits faced off against numerous reptilian creatures and a taller humanoid with shifting, prismatic scales, the same being he'd glimpsed in his vision. The second thing he noticed was that this G held the yellow-suited figure by the throat, one hand glowing with ominous energy. No time for questions. No time for caution. Naruto acted on pure instinct, channeling chakra to his legs and launching himself across the quarry floor with explosive speed. Hey, scale face, he shouted, forming a Rasengan in his palm as he closed the distance. Pick on someone your own size. The prismatic being turned just in time to receive the spiraling sphere of chakra directly in its chest. The impact sent it flying backward, releasing the yellow-suited figure who dropped to the ground, gasping for breath. Naruto landed between the fallen ranger and the creature, which was already rising to its feet with unnatural fluidity. Up close, Its shifting scales and multifaceted eyes were even more disturbing, seeming to exist partially in some other reality. What manner of vessel is this? The creature hissed, its prismatic eyes fixing on Naruto with newfound interest. Your energy, it is not of this world. I get that a lot, Naruto replied, settling into a combat stance. He sensed the other suited figures regrouping behind him, clearly confused by his sudden appearance but seemingly willing to accept the assistance. The creature's scales rippled with changing colors as it studied him. Ah, it said, a note of recognition in its crystalline voice. You are from beyond. The thinning barriers brought you through. Fascinating. The master will be most interested in your energy as well. Naruto didn't wait for it to finish its monologue. He formed the familiar cross-shaped hand sign, channeling his chakra. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. In a burst of smoke, 20 perfect copies of Naruto appeared throughout the quarry, surrounding the creature and the remaining reptilian minions. Sudden multiplication caused visible reactions from the suited figures behind him. He heard gasps and exclamations of surprise. The prismatic being seemed unimpressed. Mere illusions cannot. Its statement cut short as 3 Naruto clones delivered simultaneous kicks to its midsection, sending it staggering backward. These were no illusions. All of you, focus on the lizard things. The original Naruto called to his clones. I'll handle prismatic pretty boy here. As the clones engaged the reptilian minions, Naruto focused on the main threat. Fighting alongside Kurama during the war had taught him to recognize dimensional disturbances, and this creature reeked of wrong energy, like it existed partially in this reality and partially elsewhere. What are you? He demanded, circling the being cautiously. What's this, master, you keep talking about? The creature's laugh sounded like shattering glass. I am Prismatex, herald of Xanazoth, devourer of dimensions. For eons he has slumbered in the spaces between realities. But now the ancient spirits stir once more, and his awakening is at hand. Prismatex moved with liquid grace, faster than any normal human could track. But Naruto was far from normal. He sidestepped the attack, countering with a chakra-enhanced palm strike that connected solidly with the creature's shoulder. To his surprise, his hand passed partially through, as though the creature's physical form wasn't entirely present. The contact sent a jolt of foreign energy up his arm, similar to what he'd felt when touching the dimensional rift. Your primitive energies cannot harm me, vessel. Prismatex taunted. I exist between realities. Physical attacks are merely inconveniences. Good thing I've got more than physical attacks, Naruto replied, leaping backward to create distance. He reached inside himself, connecting with the massive reserve of power he shared with Kurama. Golden chakra enveloped his body as he entered his tailed beast mode, the energy manifesting as flickering flames around his form. His blue eyes shifted to orange-red, pupils elongating to slits as his whisker marks deepened. The transformation caused an immediate reaction. Prismatex recoiled, its prismatic eyes widening. Impossible. That energy, it resonates with the ancient spirits. More surprisingly, Naruto felt a response from the yellow-suited figure behind I am, a pulse of energy that seemed to harmonize with his own, creating a resonance that amplified both their powers. For a brief moment, he glimpsed a spectral image overlaying the yellow suit, the impresion of a pterodactyl with outstretched wings. Whatever you are, Naruto said, golden chakra swirling around his extended hand, you don't belong here. And I'm sending you back where you came from. He charged forward, golden chakra condensing into a modified Rasengan that incorporated Kurama's energy. As he thrust the technique toward Prismatex, the creature attempted to sidestep, only to find itself momentarily solid. Unable to shift between dimensions. What? No, it screeched, just before the spiraling sphere of golden energy connected with its chest. The impact was catastrophic. Prismatex's form distorted, stretched, and then collapsed in on itself like water down a drain, creating a brief vortex of prismatic energy before disappearing with an implosion of air. The remaining reptilian creatures vanished simultaneously, as though their existence had been tied to the herald's presence. Silence fell across the quarry. Naruto released his golden chakra mode, feeling the strange resonance fade as he did so. He turned slowly to face the 4 suited figures who now stood watching him with obvious caution and curiosity. The yellow one stepped forward, head tilted slightly. Who, or what, Are you? She asked, voice muffled by her helmet but unmistakably female. Before Naruto could answer, a wave of dizziness washed over him. Using Kurama's chakra so soon after the Dimensiona L crossing had depleted his reserves more than anticipated. He staggered, struggling to maintain consciousness as the adrenaline of combat faded. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, he managed, vision blurring. Shinobi of the Hidden Leaf. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was the yellow-suited figure rushing forward to catch him as he fell. Kira had experienced plenty of strange days since becoming a Power Ranger. But this one definitely took the prize. First, the weird new monster and its cryptic warnings about dimensional barriers. Then her Dino gem acting up like never before. And now, an unconscious blonde teenager in orange and black clothing who had appeared out of nowhere, created multiple copies of himself, transformed into some kind of glowing warrior, and patched their enemy with an energy technique she couldn't begin to comprehend. Just another Tuesday in Reefside. We need to get him back to the lab, Doctor. Oliver said as they gathered around the unconscious stranger. They had demorphed after confirming the area was clear, no civilians around to witness their identities. Are you sure that's a good idea? Connor asked, eyeing the mysterious teen with obvious skepticism. We have no idea who, or what, he is. He saved my life, Kira pointed out, more defensively than she'd intended. Something about this, Naruto, resonated with her, literally. She'd felt it when he'd transformed, a connection between his golden energy and her Dino gem that defied explanation. Kira's right, drive, Oliver said, kneeling to examine their unconscious visitor. Besides, whatever he is, he's clearly not from around here. Those abilities weren't like anything I've seen before, and I've seen a lot. Ethan was already scanning the teen with his data pad, eyes widening at the readings. Guys, you're not going to believe this. This dude's energy signature is off the charts, but it's not like our Dino energy. It's something completely different, yet somehow, compatible. That would explain the resonance effect I felt, drive. Oliver murmured, more to himself than to them. What are you talking about? Connor asked. Their teacher stood, decision made. We'll discuss it at the lab. Connor, help me get him into the jeep. Ethan, scan the area for any residual energy signatures. Kira, he paused, noting how she hadn't taken her eyes off the stranger. Keep an eye on our guest. If he wakes up, try to keep him calm. The drive back to Dr. Oliver's secluded home was tense with unasked questions. Kira sat in the back seat beside the unconscious teen, positioned to intercept if he woke suddenly. Up close, she could see details she'd missed in the chaos of battle. Whisker-like marks on his cheeks, a strange metal headband with a spiral leaf symbol, and numerous small scars that spoke of a life of combat. Despite his youthful appearance, something in his face suggested experiences beyond his years. Kira found herself wondering what kind of life would put such weight behind someone's eyes, visible even when they were closed in unconsciousness. Her Dino gem gave an occasional soft pulse, responding to his proximity in a way she'd never experienced before. It wasn't painful like earlier, more like recognition, acknowledgement. As if the gem knew something about this stranger that she didn't. By the time they reached the underground lab beneath Drive, Oliver's home, their visitor still hadn't stirred. They placed him on a medical examination table while Haley Zichter, their technical advisor and the only non-ranger privy to their identities, ran a series of scans. This is remarkable, the redhead said after several minutes, eyes fixed on her computer screens. His cellular structure is human, but modified in ways I can't even begin to comprehend. And the energy flowing through his system, it's not electrical, not chemical, not anything I have a reference point for. Is he dangerous? Connor asked, still maintaining a cautious distance. The guy who just saved us from becoming Monster Chow. Kira responded sarcastically. Gee, I don't know, Connor. We saw what he can do, Connor defended. Creating copies, that golden transformation. He's clearly super-powered. That doesn't automatically make him a friend. He called himself a shinobi, Drive. Oliver said thoughtfully. That's a Japanese term for ninja. Ninja, Ethan perked up. Like, actual ninja, not the movie kind. Based on those abilities, I'd say he's not exactly the historical kind either, Haley remarked dryly. Kira moved closer to the examination table, studying the unconscious teen's face. He said he was from the hidden leaf. Anyone know what that means? Head shakes all around. What about what that creature said? She continued. About dimensional barriers thinning. Could he be from, I don't know, another dimension? Doctor. Oliver nodded slowly. It would explain the unusual energy readings and his unfamiliarity. Prismatex seemed to recognize him as being from beyond. Single quote quote. Whoa, like an alien? Ethan asked, excitement overshadowing his earlier caution. Not necessarily extraterrestrial, Haley corrected, still analyzing data. If multiple dimensions exist, they could contain parallel Earths with different evolutionary paths, different energy systems, different historical developments. Great, so we've got an interdimensional ninja crashed on our exam table. Connor summarized. What do we do with him? Before anyone could answer, the subject of their discussion stirred. His eyes fluttered, then snapped open, startlingly blue and immediately alert. Scanning his surroundings with trained precision. In one fluid motion, he was off the table and in a defensive stance, a kunai knife appearing in his hand from nowhere. Where am I? He demanded, gaze flicking between them, assessing threats and exits. Who are you people? Kira stepped forward instinctively, hands raised in a non-threatening gesture. We're friends, she said, keeping her voice calm. You saved me from that creature, remember? I'm the Yellow Ranger, Kira. These are my teammates. The tension in his posture eased slightly, though the knife remained ready. His eyes lingered on her face, recognition dawning. The yellow one, with the pterodactyl spirit. Kira blinked in surprise. How did you know about the pterodactyl? I saw it, he replied simply. When our energies connected, just like I saw the Tyrannosaurus, Triceratops, and something else with the black one. He nodded toward Drive. Oliver. Brachiosaur. Drive. Oliver supplied, fascination overtaking caution. You could perceive our Dino spirits. The blonde teen, Naruto, lowered the knife but didn't put it away. Where I come from, spiritual energy manifestations aren't that unusual. Though yours are different. And where exactly do you come from? Connor asked, still skeptical. The village hidden in the leaves, in the land of fire. When this elicited only blank stares, Naruto frowned. One of the 5 great shinobi nations. The elemental countries. More blank looks. His shoulders slumped slightly as understanding set in. So that dimensional rift really did send me to another world. Dimensional rift. Doctor. Oliver echoed. Can you explain what happened? Naruto hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. The knife vanished as quickly as it had appeared, tucked away in a hidden holster. I was investigating an energy anomaly near the Valley of the End. When I touched it, I saw visions, ancient creatures, a golden dragon, and her, he nodded toward Kira, being attacked by that prismatic being. Then I was pulled through some kind of tunnel between dimensions and ended up in your battle. The golden dragon, Drive, Oliver murmured, exchanging a significant look with Haley. That's very interesting. Why? What does that mean? Naruto asked, instantly alert to their reaction. Doctor. Oliver crossed to a secure cabinet, entering a complex code to unlock it. From inside, he removed an ancient-looking scroll with faded text and carefully unrolled it on a nearby table. The Dino gems that power our Ranger abilities are connected to the spirits of ancient dinosaurs. He explained as the others gathered around. Red for Tyrannosaurus, blue for Triceratops, yellow for Pterodactyl, and black for Brachiosaur. But according to this scroll, CH documents the history of the dinosaur spirits. There was another, more powerful than the others, but never bound to a gem. His finger traced ancient symbols on the parchment. The golden dragon, not technically a dinosaur, but a creature of such power that it existed between dimensions, manifesting in multiple realities simultaneously. The scroll says the golden dragon only appears when the dimensional barriers are threatened. Haley added, reading over his shoulder. It chooses a vessel with extraordinary spiritual energy to channel its power. All eyes turned to Naruto, who shifted uncomfortably under their scrutiny. What? He asked defensively. I don't know anything about golden dragons. The only thing inside me is Kurama. Kurama, Ethan repeated. Naruto hesitated, clearly debating how much to reveal. Where I come from, there are 9 powerful spiritual entities known as tailed beasts. Kurama is the nine-tailed fox. He was sealed inside me when I was born. The elation brought stunned silence to the room. They think you're crazy, Kurama commented dryly within Naruto's mind. Not helping, Naruto shot back silently. To his surprise, rather than disbelief, Oliver's expression showed increasing excitement. A spiritual entity sealed within a human host. It's not that different from how our Dino gems bond with us, creating a symbiotic relationship. Except his fox spirit seems to have a personality, Kira pointed out. Naruto couldn't help a small smile. That's putting it mildly. I resent that, Kurama grumbled. The dimensional resonance, CE must have drawn you here specifically because of this connection, Oliver theorized. Your experience with containing a powerful spiritual entity makes you uniquely compatible with the Golden Dragon spirit. Wait, I never agreed to host another spirit, Naruto protested. I've got enough going on with Kurama, believe me. I'm insulted, the fox commented. You know what I mean, Naruto responded internally. This is complicated enough without adding another powerful entity to the mix. It may not be up to you, Haley said, studying readings on her computer. The energy signature we detected when you transformed earlier, it wasn't just your fox spirit. There was something else, something that resonated specifically with our Dino gems, especially Kira's. Naruto looked at Kira, really looked at her for the first time without the immediate threat of battle. She was about his age, with light brown hair that fell just past her shoulders, intelligent hazel eyes, and an expression that suggested she didn't impress easily. Something about her reminded him of Sakura, not physically, but in the sense of contained strength behind a deceptively normal exterior. I felt it too, Kira admitted, meeting his gaze. When you transformed, it was like my Dino gem recognized your energy. That's consistent with the scroll, Oliver said. The Golden Dragon was said to have a special connection to the pterodactyl spirit. Something about aerial affinities and sonic vibrations. Okay, this is getting weird even by our standards, Connor interjected. So what's the bottom line here? Is Naruto stuck in our dimension? Is he going to turn into some kind of dragon ranger? Are more creatures like Prismatex coming? One crisis at a time, Connor, Oliver replied. First, we need to understand exactly what's happening with the dimensional barriers. Prismatex mentioned someone called Xanazoth. The Devourer of Dimensions, Naruto supplied. That's what it called him. That doesn't sound ominous at all, Ethan remarked sarcastically. If the barriers between dimensions are weakening, it could explain both Naruto's appearance and Prismatex's attack, Haley theorized. We need to scan for dimensional anomalies around Reefside. Already on it, Ethan said, turning to his computer terminal. Naruto crossed his arms, feeling distinctly out of place despite their apparent acceptance. So what happens to me in the meantime? I need to find a way back to my world. People will be looking for me. Doctor, Oliver considered this. We'll help you, Naruto. But I suspect your appearance here isn't accidental. If the Golden Dragon spirit has indeed chosen you, then our dimensions may be facing a common threat. One that brought you here for a reason. Great, Naruto muttered. Saving one world wasn't enough, now I get to do it in stereo. His complaint lacked real heat, though. Deep down, a part of him, the part that had felt directionless since the war ended, responded to the challenge. Purpose, something that required his unique abilities. Something only he could do. You can stay with me, Oliver offered. I have plenty of room, and it will keep you close to our command center here. We'll need to create a cover story, Haley added practically. A teenager appearing out of nowhere would raise questions. Exchange student, Ethan suggested. From Japan, obviously. That could work, Oliver agreed. I can pull some strings at the school to get you enrolled temporarily. It would help you blend in while we figure this out. Naruto's expression suggested that attending high school wasn't exactly his idea of blending in, but he nodded reluctantly. I guess that makes sense. I can help you with the basics, Kira volunteered suddenly, earning surprised looks from her teammates. She shrugged defensively. What? He's going to need someone to show him how things work here. Our technology, customs, slang, it's probably all different from his world. Definitely, Naruto confirmed. I don't even recognize half the things in this room. Then it's settled. Drive. Oliver said. Naruto stays with me, enrolls at Reefside High. And Kira helps him adjust while we investigate the dimensional anomalies and this Xanazoth threat. As plans were made around him, Naruto felt a strange sensation in his chest. Not Kurama's energy, but something else. Something ancient and powerful that seemed to resonate with his very being, as though it had been dormant within him his entire life, waiting for this moment. The dragon stirs, Kurama observed within him. His tone uncharacteristically respectful. We are not alone in this vessel anymore, Naruto. What does that mean for us? Naruto asked silently. I do not know, the fox admitted. But I sense no hostility from this presence. Only purpose. Ancient purpose. Across the room, Naruto's eyes met Kira's, and he felt that resonance again, a connection that transcended the dimensional barriers separating their worlds. Whatever was happening, whatever this golden dragon spirit wanted from him, she was somehow integral to it. One thing was certain. His life, already far from normal, had just become exponentially more complicated. As the Rangers and their dimensional visitor made plans in Dr. Oliver's underground lab, none of them noticed the subtle distortion in the air near the ceiling, a ripple in reality no larger than a coin, but growing steadily with each passing moment. Through this dimensional peephole, multifaceted eyes observed, absorbing every word, every plan, every revelation about the golden dragon spirit and the youth who might become its vessel. In the space between dimensions, in a crystalline chamber that existed outside conventional reality, Prismatex knelt before a massive throne formed from what appeared to be solidified darkness. The herald's form was damaged, unstable, portions of its prismatic scales flickering in and out of existence. The vessel has arrived, Master, Prismatex reported, voice distorted by dimensional damage. Just as you predicted, the ancient spirits stir once more. From the throne, a sound like the universe sighing emerged. Darkness shifted, coalesced, suggesting a form of impossible proportions and angles that the human mind could not process without breaking. The fox and the dragon in one vessel. Came a voice that was not truly a voice but rather the concept of communication forced into audible form. Such power, such potential, such a feast of dimensional energy. The yellow one resonates with him, Prismatex added. Their energies harmonize in ways I have not seen in millennia. Yes, the darkness replied. The pterodactyl and the dragon. Ancient allies against my first attempt at dimensional consumption. History repeats itself, but the ending will be different this time. The massive form shifted, and what might have been a hand extended from the darkness, revealing skin like the void between stars. You have served well, Prismatex, despite your failure. Return to the material plane. Monitor the vessel. When the golden dragon spirit fully awakens within him, that is when he will be most vulnerable, caught between identities, between powers, between dimensions. And the Rangers, Master. A sound like planets colliding served as laughter. Let them play their games. Let them think they prepare for war. When Xanazoth hungers, all dimensions will know it. And this time, there will be no ancient spirits to stop me. The darkness receded, leaving Prismatex alone in the crystalline chamber. The herald's prismatic eyes gleamed with anticipation as its form stabilized, drawing strength from its master's presence. Soon, it whispered to itself, all dimensions will be one. All energy will flow to the master. And the golden dragon will fall, along with its foolish human vessel. In Dr. Oliver's lab, the dimensional peephole closed silently, leaving no trace of its existence. The stage was set. The ancient conflict would resume. And at the center of it all, a shinobi from another world, still unaware of the true power stirring within him, a power older than the Sage of Six Paths. Older than the tailed beasts, perhaps older than chakra itself. The power of the golden dragon. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Stranger in a Strange Land. The mechanical beast roared to life beneath him, vibrating with barely contained power. Naruto gripped the leather seat, knuckles white, as his entire body tensed. The sound alone, raw and aggressive, triggered combat instinct. NCTS honed through years of shinobi training. It's just a motorcycle, drive, Oliver said, his voice tinged with amusement as he handed Naruto a glossy black helmet. I promise it won't eat you. Naruto forced a nervous laugh. Right, obviously. He examined the helmet with suspicion before mimicking how drive. Oliver placed his own on his head. The claustrophobic sensation of having his peripheral vision restricted made him even more uneasy. They sat in Dr. Oliver's garage, morning sunlight streaming through dusty windows. After a night spent in a spare bedroom filled with strange devices and unfamiliar furniture, Naruto had hoped the disorientation would fade. It hadn't. Everything in this world seemed designed specifically to bewilder him, from the indoor plumbing, with its bewildering array of knobs and switches, to the refrigerator that somehow created cold without ice jutsu. Remember, you're holding on to me, not driving, drive. Oliver instructed as he mounted the motorcycle in front of Naruto. We'll take it slow at first. Just lean with me when we turn. Naruto nodded, though the helmet made the gesture cumbersome. Where are we going again? Reefside Mall. Here is meeting us there. You need clothes that'll help you blend in, Doctor. Oliver replied, starting the engine. The motorcycle's growl intensified, sending renewed vibrations through Naruto's body. Can't have you walking around in ninja gear if you're supposed to be a normal exchange student. Normal. The word almost made Naruto laugh. He'd never been normal, not even by shinobi standards. As they pulled out of the driveway onto a smooth black road unlike anything in the Hidden Leaf, Naruto instinctively reached for chakra to steady himself. The sensation was immediate and concerning. His chakra responded, but differently, as though filtered through another energy system that both enhanced and altered it. The dragon's influence grows, Kurama observed within him. Our energies are adapting to this dimension. Is that dangerous? Naruto asked silently. Unknown. The fox replied with uncharacteristic uncertainty. This is beyond even my experience. The motorcycle accelerated, and Naruto's attention snapped back to his immediate surroundings. The world blurred past at speeds that would impress even Gai-sensei. Buildings unlike anything in the elemental nations lined the roadway, glass and steel structures reflecting sunlight in patterns that dazzled and confused the eye. Strange vehicles, cars, Oliver had called them, moved in organized chaos, each containing people dressed in wildly varied clothing. The sensory overload was overwhelming. Scents he couldn't identify filled the air, artificial flavors, petroleum products, manufacturing chemicals, all mixing with the natural aromas of ocean salt and distant forests. Sounds assaulted him from every direction. Mechanical hums, electronic beeps, the constant background noise of what Oliver called civilization. For a shinobi trained to catalog and analyze every sensory input as potential intelligence, the sheer volume of unfamiliar data was exhausting. By the time they arrived at the mall, a massive building containing smaller buildings, a concept Naruto still couldn't quite grasp, his head was spinning with sensations. They parked among rows of gleaming vehicles, and Naruto gratefully removed the helmet, letting the cool morning air clear his thoughts. You okay, Doctor? Oliver asked, noting his expression. Yeah, Naruto lied, squinting at the towering structure before them. Just a lot to take in. I can imagine. Culture shock is hard enough when you're just visiting another country. You're in another dimension entirely. Naruto appreciated that Dr. Oliver didn't sugarcoat the situation. Despite his initial suspicions, the Black Ranger seemed genuinely interested in helping him. After years of being viewed as a dangerous container for Kurama, the straightforward acceptance was refreshing. He entered the mall through glass doors that opened automatically, another small surprise that made Naruto flinch slightly. Inside, the sensory assault intensified. Hundreds of people moved through a cavernous space filled with artificial light. Music played from invisible sources. Scents of food, perfume, cleaning products, and humanity mingled in a dizzying cocktail. There's Kira, Oliver said, pointing toward a fountain at the center of the atrium. She sat on a concrete bench, yellow backpack at her feet, typing on a small device held in both hands. When she looked up and spotted them, her expression shifted from concentration to something Naruto couldn't quite read, caution mixed with curiosity, perhaps. I've got a faculty meeting in an hour, Oliver told her as they approached. Can you handle this? Kira pocketed her device and stood, crossing her arms defensively. Sure. How hard can it be to shop for Mr. Interdimensional Ninja? The sarcastic edge in her voice made Naruto smirk. I'm standing right here, you know. Oh, I know, she replied, a hint of challenge in her tone as she looked him up and down. Orange jumpsuit and all. What's wrong with orange? Naruto demanded, immediately defensive of his trademark color. Nothing, if you're a traffic cone. Doctor. Oliver cleared his throat, poorly disguising a laugh. Right, I'll leave you two to it, then. Kira has the credit card I gave her for expenses. Just remember, normal clothes, nothing flashy. He needs to blend in. Stealth mode. Got it, Kira replied with a small salute. I'll pick you both up at the food court around 1, drive. Oliver said, already backing away. And Kira, try not to let him cause an international incident. Once he'd disappeared into the crowd, Kira turned to Naruto with renewed assessment in her gaze. Without the immediate crisis of yesterday's battle, she seemed to be truly seeing him for the first time, just as he was seeing her. She wore black jeans with deliberate tears at the knees, yellow Converse sneakers, and a black t-shirt with some kind of band logo beneath an open yellow and black flannel shirt. A silver chain with a small guitar pick pendant hung around her neck. The overall effect was casual but distinctive, suggesting someone who cared about personal style without being obsessive about it. So, she finally said, "Where do we start with you?" Naruto shrugged. "You're the guide in this dimension. I don't even know what normal looks like here." Kira's lips quirked into something approaching a smile. "Fair point. Let's start with basics. Follow me, and try not to look too amazed by escalators." "Esca what?" She pointed to moving stairs carrying people between floors. Naruto's eyes widened. "That's actually pretty cool." "Oh boy," Kira sighed. "This is going to be a long day." The transformation was remarkable. 3 hours and 7 stores later, Naruto emerged from a changing room wearing dark blue jeans, a black t-shirt with subtle orange accents, and a navy blue zip-up hoodie with orange interior lining. New black and orange sneakers completed the look. "Better," Kira assessed, circling him critically. "Way less. I'm a ninja from another dimension, and more, I'm a normal teenager with an orange fixation." "It feels weird," Naruto admitted, tugging at the unfamiliar fabrics. The jeans were stiffer than anything he was used to. The sneakers lighter than his sandals. But good weird, I guess. They'd purchased enough clothes for a full week, along with necessities that Naruto hadn't even considered, like a backpack for school, notebooks, and what Kira called basic hygiene products. The entire experience had been a crash course in Earth culture, with Kira explaining everything from brand names to Zing conventions to the concept of sales tax. Now they sat in the food court, surrounded by shopping bags, as Naruto experienced his first food court burger. His expression as he took the initial bite was one of pure astonishment. "This is amazing," he mumbled around a mouthful. "We have nothing like this at home." "Seriously?" Kira asked, picking at her own salad. "No burgers in Ninja Land." Naruto shook his head emphatically. "We have ramen, which is way better, by the way, and yakitori, onigiri, lots of stuff. But nothing like this." He took another massive bite, humming with satisfaction. Kira watched him with barely concealed amusement. There was something almost endearing about his unfiltered reactions to everyday things. Since becoming a ranger, she'd become accustomed to hiding her emotions, keeping secrets, maintaining a careful distance from others. Naruto seemed incapable of such restraint. Every thought and feeling played openly across his face. "So," she said, stabbing a cucumber with her fork. "What's it like? Your world, I mean." Naruto paused mid-chew, surprised by the genuine interest in her question. He swallowed before answering. "It's different. We have villages instead of cities like this. Technology isn't as advanced, but we have other advantages, chakra techniques that can do things your technology can't. We've had 4 great ninja wars, the last one just ending a few months ago." "Wars?" Kira's eyebrows rose. "You fought in a war?" Something darkened in Naruto's expression. "Yeah, pretty much everyone my age did. The 4th Great Ninja War united all the shinobi villages against a common enemy. We won, but a lot of people didn't make it." The casual way he mentioned war, as if it were a normal part of teenage life, struck Kira forcefully. She'd faced monsters as a ranger. Yes, but actual war. Looking at Naruto with new eyes, she noticed details she'd previously overlooked. The watchful way he scanned his surroundings, the precise economy of his movements. The faint scars visible on his hands and neck. This wasn't just someone from another dimension, this was a soldier. "How old are you?" she asked suddenly. 17, he replied. "You, same." Kira shook her head slightly. "But I don't think we've had the same 17 years. Naruto smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Probably not." An awkward silence fell between them. Kira found herself wanting to ask 1,000 questions. About the war, about his life as a shinobi, about the nine-tailed fox he'd mentioned being sealed inside him. But something in his expression suggested those topics might be better approached carefully. Instead, she pulled out her phone. "Let's cover some basics you'll need for school tomorrow. This is a cell phone. It lets people talk to each other from anywhere." Quote. Naruto leaned forward, examining the device with genuine curiosity. "We have radios for missions, but nothing this small or advanced. It also takes pictures, plays music, connects to the internet, which is going to be a whole separate explanation, and basically runs most people's lives. Can I see how it works?" Kira hesitated, then handed him the phone. "Just don't break it. My mom would kill me." Naruto held it reverently, turning it over in his hands. When the screen lit up with Kira's background image, a promotional poster for a band called Screaming Trees, his eyes widened. "It's so clear," he marveled. "Like a photograph but glowing." Watching him examine something she took completely for granted gave Kira an unexpected perspective shift. How many everyday miracles did she overlook? How would her world look to fresh eyes? "Here," she said, taking the phone back and opening the camera app. "This is how you take pictures." She held the phone up, framing both of them in the screen. "Smile, ninja boy." Naruto, caught off guard, managed a genuine grin just as she pressed the capture button. Kira showed him the result, the 2-0. Them against the backdrop of the food court, his blue eyes bright with discovery, her own expression more relaxed than she'd intended to reveal. "That's incredible," he said, genuinely impressed. "It's instant." "Welcome to the 21st century," Kira replied, suddenly aware of how close their heads were as they looked at the screen together. She pulled back slightly, tucking the phone away. Hold probably covers some school basics too. So you don't completely blow your cover on day one." "Right," Naruto nodded, finishing the last of his burger. "What's school like here? Is it like the academy back home?" "I seriously doubt it," Kira said. "Unless your academy involved cheerleaders, football games, and standardized testing." "Cheerleaders. Oh boy," Kira muttered, rubbing her temples. "This is definitely going to be a long day." Across town, in a laboratory that existed as much in the spaces between dimensions as in physical reality, Elsa studied energy readings with growing fascination. Behind her, the reptilian form of Mesogog loomed, yellow eyes unblinking as he observed the data scrolling across multiple screens. "The energy signature is unlike anything in our records," Elsa reported, her crisp voice echoing in the cavernous space. "It appeared suddenly yesterday, during the Rangers' battle with that strange crystalline entity. And this SSS entity was not one of yours." Mesogog hissed, the sibilant quality of his speech emphasizing his reptilian nature. "No, my lord, it appeared independently, attacked the Rangers, and then was destroyed by..." Elsa hesitated, reviewing the footage captured by surveillance drones. The screen showed grainy images of a blonde teenager generating multiple copies of himself before transforming into a glowing golden figure that dispatched the crystalline creature with some kind of spiraling energy sphere. "Fascinating," Mesogog purred, leaning closer to the screen. "Neither ranger nor monster, yet possessing power that exceeds both. What do we know of this new player?" "Very little, my lord. After the battle, the rangers took him to Dr. Oliver's residence. Our sensors have detected Unasu Al energy fluctuations from that location ever since, but nothing that matches the intensity of what we saw during the battle." Mesogog's clawed hand reached out, freezing the image on the golden glowing figure. "This energy, it resonates with the very fabric of dimensional reality. It could be the key to accelerating our plans for prehistoric renaissance." Shall I prepare a capture operation? Elsa asked eagerly. Yes, Mesogog replied, his voice a sinister whisper. But with caution. This is not merely another power source to be harvested. This energy, and its wielder, could change everything. He turned away from the screens, moving to a containment unit where a small fragment of crystalline material pulsed with prismatic light, recovered from the site of yesterday's battle. Meanwhile, analyze this residue. I want to know what this creature was, where it came from, and why it appeared now, just as our mysterious golden warrior arrived. Mesogog's eyes narrowed to reptilian slits. There are no coincidences in the struggle for dimensional supremacy. The dimensional rift pulsed like an infected wound in the fabric of reality. Where once it had been nearly invisible, now it stretched almost 3 meters across, its edges ragged and distorted. The iridescent energy that defined its boundaries fluctuated wildly, expanding and contracting with each pulse. No one witnessed its growth. The Valley of the End remained empty of visitors, the massive crater left by the battle between Naruto and Sasuke years earlier still deterring casual travelers. No one, that is, except for a single figure who approached the phenomenon with cautious determination. Chiyuya's red hair hung loose around her shoulders, longer than it had been during her time with Orochimaru's Sound 4. The curse mark on her neck remained dormant, sealed by techniques she'd learned in the years since her near-death experience at the hands of the Nara brat and his fan-wielding girlfriend. She wore simple civilian clothing, dark pants, a gray tunic, sturdy boots, with a flute secured at her hip, her only visible weapon. But appearances were deceiving. The former sound ninja had spent years building her strength after being crushed beneath those trees, learning to channel her musical genjutsu in new ways, developing techniques that didn't rely on the curse mark's corrupting power. Now she stood before the rift. Dark eyes narrowed as she studied the pulsing energy. Tracking Naruto Uzumaki had been challenging but not impossible. The chakra residue he left behind was distinctive, almost impossible to mask. When reports reached her of his disappearance during a visit to the Valley of the End, she knew exactly where to look. Always finding trouble, aren't you, fox boy? She murmured, circling the rift cautiously. 3 years ago, she would have laughed at the idea of actively seeking out the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. He had been the enemy then, part of the retrieval team sent after Sasuke. The mission that had nearly cost Chiyuya her life. But much had changed since then. Orochimaru's death. The war, the revelation of who, and what, Naruto truly was. The savior of the shinobi world. The child of prophecy. The ninja who never gave up on anyone, not even enemies like her. After recovering from her injuries, Chiyuya had watched from the shadows as Naruto transformed from village pariah to world hero. She'd seen him fight gods and demons, protect villages that had once scorned him, extend forgiveness to those who had tried to kill him. Including, indirectly, her. It stirred something long dormant in her cynical heart. Something like hope. So when he vanished without a trace, when the rumors began circulating about dimensional disturbances and strange energy at the Valley of the End, Chiyuya made her decision. She would find him. She would repay the debt she owed. Not to the village, not to the Shinobi Alliance, but to the one person who embodied the redemption she secretly craved. All right, shithead, she muttered, using the crude language that had become her trademark during her Sound 4 days. Let's see where you've gone this time. Drawing her flute, Chiyuya began to play. Not the aggressive melodies that controlled her Doki summons, but something subtler, more exploratory. The notes hung in the air, visible as faint ripples of chakra that interacted with the dimensional rift's pulsing energy. Where they connected, images flickered briefly, snapshots of another world, strange vehicles, tall buildings of glass and steel. And there, just for a moment, a ash of familiar blonde hair and whisker-marked cheeks. Chiyuya lowered the flute, satisfaction curling her lips. Found you. She took a step toward the rift, then hesitated, calculating risks as she'd been trained to do. No guarantee of return, no knowledge of what lay beyond. Potential hostile environment, unknown threats. Then again, when had certainty ever been part of her life? Fuck it, she decided aloud. Not like I have anything better to do. Securing her flute, Chiyuya took a deep breath and stepped forward into the shimmering distortion. The world around her stretched, compressed, and then shattered into fragments of light and sound. Her body felt simultaneously weightless and impossibly heavy, her consciousness stretched across what seemed like infinite space. She had one C. Lear thought before reality reassembled itself around her. This had better be worth it, Uzumaki. Asterisk. The dimensional energy is fluctuating again, Haley reported, eyes fixed on the monitor in Dr. Oliver's underground lab. Same pattern as yesterday, but stronger. Dr. Oliver leaned over her shoulder, studying the readouts with concern. Location. That's the strange part, Haley replied, bringing up a map on the adjacent screen. The epicenter keeps shifting. It started near the quarry where Naruto appeared, but it's moving across town in a seemingly random pattern. Or not random at all, drive. Oliver murmured, tracing the movement pattern with his finger. Look, it's spiraling inward, toward the center of Reefside. You're right, Haley confirmed, typing rapidly to project the pattern forward. If it continues this trajectory, the next disturbance should manifest somewhere near the mall. Drive. Oliver finished, already reaching for his communicator. Where Kira and Naruto are right now. The first indication that something was wrong came when Naruto's newly purchased orange smoothie began rippling without being touched. Tiny concentric circles formed on the surface, like raindrops falling into still water, except there were no raindrops in the indoor food court. He glanced up at Kira, who was mid-explanation about something called social media and Nautic. That she hadn't registered the anomaly. But there was more, a subtle vibration in the air, a faint distortion in the light that reminded him of genjutsu, but somehow more fundamental. And beneath it all, a familiar energy signature. Not quite chakra, but similar. Related. You feel it too? He asked Kurama internally. Yes, the fox replied, unusually alert. Something approaches through the dimensional barrier. And that's why you should never post anything you wouldn't want your teacher to see, Kira was saying, oblivious to Naruto's sudden distraction. Kira, Naruto interrupted quietly, eyes scanning the crowded food court. Something's happening. Her expression shifted immediately, years of ranger experience kicking in. What kind of something? Monster something. Dimensional something, Naruto clarified, rising from his seat. Like what brought me here, but different. As if on cue, Kira's communicator chimed, the yellow device disguised as a bracelet that Dr. Oliver had given each ranger. She activated it with practiced discretion. Kira here. We're picking up dimensional fluctuations near your location, drive. Oliver's voice came through clearly despite its low volume. Get Naruto and evacuate the area if possible. Too late for that, Kira replied, noticing the strange visual distortion that was now becoming visible to normal human perception, a shim marrying in the air near the center of the food court. It's already happening. Shoppers began to notice as well, pointing and murmuring as the distortion grew, stretching reality like a funhouse mirror. Those closest to the phenomenon backed away instinctively, creating a rapidly expanding circle of empty space. We need to get these people out of here, Kira said, already moving toward the nearest emergency exit. Fire alarm. Naruto nodded grimly, sprinting toward the red alarm box on the wall. One quick pull, and blaring sirens filled the mall, accompanied by automated evacuation announcements. The crowd, already unsettled by the visual distortion, needed no further encouragement. They moved en masse toward the exits, creating controlled chaos. As the last civilians cleared the food court, Naruto and Kira positioned themselves on opposite sides of the growing anomaly, ready to confront whatever emerged. Should you transform? Naruto asked, already channeling chakra in preparation for combat. Kira hesitated, hand hovering over her Dino morpher. Not unless we have to. Dr. O is pretty strict about morphing only when necessary. The dimensional rift expanded suddenly, stretching from floor to ceiling in a vertical tear that pulsed with iridescent energy. Unlike the portal that had brought Naruto through, this one seemed less stable, its edges jagged and fluctuating wildly. Then, without warning, it contracted violently, collapsing inward before exploding outward in a burst of energy that sent tables and chairs flying. Naruto shielded his face with his arm, while Kira ducked behind an overturned table. When they looked up, a figure stood in the center of the food court where the rift had been, a young woman with long red hair, disoriented but already shifting into a defensive stance. dark eyes scanning her surroundings with trained precision. Naruto froze, recognition and disbelief warring on his face. Chiyuya. The redhead's gaze locked onto him, relief i.e. fly flashing across her features before being replaced by her customary scowl. There you are, Fox Boy. Do you have any idea how hard you were to track across fucking dimensions? Kira stepped forward cautiously, looking between them. Friend of yours? Not exactly, Naruto replied, his stance relaxing slightly but remaining cautious. Chiyuya was part of the Sound 4, Orochimaru's elite guard. Last time I saw her, she was trying to help kidnap my friend Sasuke. That was years ago, dipshit, Chiyuya snapped, though there was less venom in her tone than her words suggested. A lot has changed since then. Like what? Naruto challenged, though his voice held curiosity rather than hostility. Chiyuya straightened, running a hand through her disheveled red hair. Like me nearly dying, for starters. Like watching you save the world during the war. Like realizing that maybe, just maybe, there are better things to do with my life than serve megalomaniacal snake bastards. Before Naruto could respond, Kira's communicator chimed again. Kira, what's happening? Doctor, Oliver's voice demanded. We've got another visitor from Naruto's world, she replied, keeping a wary eye on Chiyuya. Red hair, bad attitude. Apparently used to be an enemy. Used to be, Chiyuya emphasized with a glare. Past tense, yellow girl. Her name is Chiyuya, Naruto added, moving closer to the redhead with cautious optimism. She's a sound-based genjutsu user. Uses a flute to cast illusions and control summoned creatures. Sound-based abilities. Doctor, Oliver's voice held new interest. Like Kira's terror scream, Chiyuya's eyes narrowed at Kira. You're a sound user. Sometimes, Kira replied cryptically, unwilling to reveal too much to someone she'd just met, especially someone with a questionable history. Tension crackled between the two young women, each assessing the other with professional wariness. Naruto looked between them, sensing the potential for either alliance or conflict. How did you find me? He asked Chiyuya, attempting to defuse the situation. The redhead shifted her attention back to him. Tracked your chakra signature to the Valley of the End, found the dimensional rift. Used my sound techniques to locate your specific frequency across the barrier, and followed it here. She shrugged as if dimensional travel were an everyday occurrence. Basic tracking shit, but why? Naruto pressed. Why come looking for me at all? Something complicated flickered across Chiyuya's face, vulnerability quickly masked by bravado. Because the elemental nations are boring as H.L. now that you've brought peace to everyone. A girl needs some excitement. Naruto didn't believe that for a second, but before he could press further, the ambient lighting in the mall flickered ominously. A cold sensation washed over the food court, raising goosebumps on exposed skin. Oh, that can't be good, Kira muttered, her hand moving back toward her Dino morpher. Doctor. Oh, she spoke into her communicator. Something else is happening here. We see it, came the tense reply. Energy readings just spiked off the charts. Whatever came through with your new friend weakened the dimensional barrier even further. As if summoned by his words, the air at the far end of the food court began to distort again, but differently this time. Instead of the iridescent shimmer of the dimensional rift, this distortion was darker. Oily, with tendrils of shadow that seemed to reach outward like grasping fingers. That's not like the portal I came through, Chiyuya observed, instinctively moving closer to Naruto. That feels wrong. Very wrong, Naruto agreed, feeling Kurama stir uneasily within him. The fox, usually eager for battle, seemed almost hesitant in the face of this new threat. The shadowy distortion solidified, forming a swirling vortex of darkness. From within its depths emerged a dozen tyrannodrones, but these were different from the ones Naruto had encountered in his first battle. Their scales were darker, with prismatic highlights that caught the light in unnatural ways. Their eyes glowed with an intelligence that standard tyrannodrones lacked. Behind them came a familiar figure, Prismatex. Its form fully restored and enhanced, scales shifting through colors that hurt the human eye to observe directly. Greetings, vessels, the crystalline being intoned, its multifaceted eyes fixing on Naruto. The master sends his regards. I thought I sent you packing yesterday, Naruto replied, already forming a hand sign for his shadow clone jutsu. You merely sent me home to be renewed. Prismatex replied with a sound like grinding glass that might have been laughter. And now I return, stronger, to fulfill the master's purpose. Kira stepped forward, all pretense of normalcy abandoned. Dino Thunder, power up, she called, activating her morpher. Yellow energy enveloped her, transforming her civilian clothing into the Yellow Ranger suit, complete with helmet. Tyrannodrones, retrieve the vessels, Prismatex commanded, gesturing toward Naruto and, surprisingly, to Yuya as well. The master requires their energy. As the enhanced Tyrannodrones surged forward, Naruto completed his hand sign. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. A dozen clones appeared around him, each moving to intercept the creatures. Meanwhile, Yuya drew her flute from her hip, bringing it to her lips. Cover your ears if you can, she warned Kira before beginning to play. The melody that emerged was unlike anything Kira had ever heard, haunting, complex, and infused with chakra. That became visible as red ripples in the air. The enhanced Tyrannodrones nearest to Yuya slowed, their movements becoming uncoordinated as the genjutsu took hold. Kira, protected by her helmet's audio filters, engaged another group of Tyrannodrones with her Terra grips. The Yellow Ranger moved with practiced efficiency, each strike precise and effective against the reptilian foot soldiers. Naruto and his clones, meanwhile, focused on Prismatex itself. What does your master want? He demanded, landing a solid kick that passed partially through the crystalline being's semi-corporeal form. What all great powers want? Prismatex replied, counter-attacking with a prismatic energy blast that dispelled 3 shadow clones instantly. More power. Your unique energies, the fox, the dragon, and, now the melodist, will serve as perfect conduits for his dimensional consumption. The dragon again, Naruto muttered, dodging another blast. Everyone keeps talking about this dragon, but I'm not feeling very dragony at the moment. The presence stirs within you, Kurama commented internally. It simply hasn't fully awakened yet. Well, maybe it could hurry up, Naruto replied with characteristic impatience. We could use the help right now. Across the food court, Kira found herself overwhelmed as more enhanced Tyrannodrones emerged from the portal. Despite her ranger abilities, their numbers and increased strength were pushing her defensive capabilities to the limit. A little help here, she called out, narrowly avoiding a clawed strike aimed at her helmet. Yuya shifted her melody, the notes becoming sharper, more aggressive. 3 spectral figures began to materialize around her. Her Doki summons, twisted humanoid forms that had once been her primary weapons under Orochimaru's influence. But these were different, cleaner somehow, less corrupted, though no less intimidating. Handle the lizard freaks, she commanded them, never breaking her melody. The Doki moved with surprising speed, intercepting Tyrannodrones that had been closing in on Kira's position. The Yellow Ranger nodded appreciatively toward Yuya before re-engaging with renewed vigor. The temporary alliance of necessity seemed to be working, Naruto and his clones keeping Prismatex occupied, Yuya's summons and Kira handling the Tyrannodrones. But then Prismatex changed tactics. Enough games, the crystalline being announced, its form suddenly pulsing with intense prismatic energy. The master grows impatient. The burst of energy that followed dispelled all of Naruto's remaining shadow CL1s and sent him flying backward into a support column. Chiyuya's melody faltered as the shockwave hit her, disrupting her chakra flow and causing her Doki to waver and dissolve. Kira, despite her ranger suit's protection, was thrown across the food court, crashing through tables before rolling to a stop against a counter. Prismatex moved toward Naruto with deliberate steps, each footfall leaving prismatic residue that seemed to corrode the mall's tiled floor. The dragon stirs within you, it said, voice almost reverent despite its mechanical quality. I can sense it responding to your distress. Perfect. When it emerges, when it tries to protect you, that is when you will be most vulnerable to the master's influence. Naruto struggled to rise, his body aching from the impact. Kurama's healing chakra worked to repair the damage, but not quickly enough. Prismatex loomed over him, one crystalline hand reaching down to grasp him by the throat, mirroring how it had held Kira the day before. Your world, her world. All worlds will feed the master's hunger, Prismatex intoned. And you, vessel, will be the key that unlocks the dimensional barriers. Through spotty vision, Naruto saw Hira struggling to her feet across the food court, Yuya doing the same nearby. Neither would reach him in time. As Prismatex's grip tightened around his throat, cutting off his air supply, Naruto felt something stir within him. Something ancient and powerful that existed alongside but separate from Kurama. A presence that had been dormant, watching, waiting for precisely this moment of greatest need. The dragon awakens, Kurama announced, with what sounded almost like respect. Heat spread through Naruto's body, not the familiar warmth of the fox's chakra but something different, a golden energy that felt simultaneously foreign and intimately familiar, as though it had always been part of him, waiting to be recognized. Vision swimming from lack of oxygen, Naruto heard a voice that was neither his nor Kurama's, ancient, powerful, and undeniably draconic. You who bears the nine-tailed spirit, it rumbled within his mind. Will you accept my power as well? Will you become my vessel against the devourer? With consciousness fading, Naruto managed a single coherent thought in response, yes. Whatever it takes to protect both worlds. Golden light erupted from his body, so intense that Prismatex released him with a crystalline screech of pain. The light enveloped Naruto completely, lifting him from the ground as his body hovered in the air, suspended by power that rewrote the very rules of physical reality around him. Hira and Yuya shielded their eyes from the brilliance, while the remaining Tyrannodrones cowered back toward their dimensional portal. Within the golden cocoon of light, Naruto felt his consciousness expand beyond physical limitations. He perceived multiple dimensions simultaneously, saw the thin barriers that separated them, understood for the first time the true nature of the threat they faced. Xanazoth was not merely a being but a cosmic force of consumption, a hunger that had existed since the birth of the multiverse, seeking to collapse all realities into a single point of concentrated power with itself at the center. And the golden dragon, the spirit now merging with his own, was its ancient nemesis, a guardian of dimensional integrity. He had opposed Xanazoth across eons and realities. As this understanding flooded his mind, Naruto felt his body transforming. The golden energy coalesced, solidified, becoming physical matter that encased him in armor unlike anything in either his world or the Rangers. Gold and orange plates formed around his limbs, his torso, his shoulders, not bulky but sleek, allowing for the agility a shinobi required while providing protection a ranger needed. A helmet materialized last, its design incorporating elements of both traditions, the faceplate reminiscent of a ranger's helmet but with markings that evoked both the nine tails and the golden dragon. Through the visor, Naruto's vision was enhanced, allowing him to perceive energy signatures and dimensional fluctuations that had previously been invisible. When the transformation completed, the Golden Dragon Ranger stood where Naruto had fallen, a warrior bridging worlds, traditions, and powers in a unique synthesis that had never existed before. Impossible, Prismatex hissed, backing away. The prophecy was a myth. The Golden Dragon was destroyed eons ago. Myths have a way of coming back when you least expect them, Naruto replied. His voice carrying a dual resonance that blended his own tones with something deeper, more ancient. Just like I'm sending you back to your master, in pieces this time. He moved with speed that exceeded even his shinobi training, crossing the distance to Prismatex in a golden blur. His armored fist connected with the crystalline being's chest, and this time there was no phasing through. The gold dragon energy neutralized Prismatex's dimensional shifting abilities, forcing it into a single reality where it could be harmed. The impact sent the herald flying backward, crashing through the food court wall into the mall beyond. Naruto, the Golden Dragon Ranger, followed, golden energy trailing from his armored form like flames. Hira stared in amazement, her ranger helmet hiding her expression of awe. Did you know he could do that? She asked Yuya, who had moved to stand beside her. The redhead shook her head, equally stunned. Fox Boy's always been full of surprises, but this is new even for him. In the mall corridor beyond the food court, Naruto pressed his advantage. Each strike against Prismatex was enhanced with both chakra and golden dragon energy, creating a devastating combination that the dimensional herald couldn't counter. Where yesterday it had seemed almost invulnerable, today it cracked and fractured under the Golden Dragon Ranger's assault. The master will not be denied, Prismatex gasped. its prismatic form losing coherence with each blow. This is merely the beginning. Then I'll be ready for what comes next, Naruto replied, channeling golden energy into his palm. The familiar spiraling pattern of the Rasengan formed, but transformed, golden light intertwined with blue chakra, creating a technique that existed at the intersection of shinobi arts and ranger powers. Golden Dragon Rasengan, he called, driving the enhanced technique directly into Prismatex's fractured chest. The impact was cataclysmic. Prismatex's form shattered completely, fragments of crystalline material exploding outward before dissolving into prismatic dust that faded from this dimension entirely. The dark portal that had brought the Herald and its Tyrannodrones collapsed in on itself, sealing with an audible snap that echoed through the damaged mall. Silence fell, broken only by the distant wail of approaching emergency vehicles. Naruto stood alone in the debris-strewn corridor, golden armor gleaming under the mall's fluorescent lighting. He could feel the dragon's presence within him, distinct from but now harmonized with Kurama's energy, two ansi Ent powers coexisting within a single human vessel. This is unexpected, Kurama commented dryly within his mind. It seems we have a roommate. One who respects your domain, nine-tailed one, the dragon's voice replied, surprising both Naruto and Kurama with its direct communication. Our energies are compatible, not competitive. Together, we can prepare this vessel for what comes. And what exactly is coming? Naruto asked internally, already dreading the answer. War. The dragon replied simply. Dimensional war. Xanazoth has awakened from his cosmic slumber, hungry for the energy of multiple realities. What you faced today was merely a scout, testing your capabilities. The weight of this revelation settled over Naruto just as Kira and Tayuya approached, picking their way through the debris. Kira had demorphed, returning to her civilian form now that the immediate threat had passed. That was, she began, then seemed at a loss for words. Fucking amazing, Tayuya finished for her, a rare genuine smile breaking through her usual scowl. Since when can you turn into a golden warrior, fox boy? Naruto felt the transformation release, golden armor dissolving into particle. Less of light that faded back into his body. The power remained within him, dormant but accessible now that the connection had been established. Since about 2 minutes ago, he replied honestly, Sud. Dimly feeling the exhaustion that followed using such immense energy. He staggered slightly, and both young women moved to support him, Kira on his left, Tayuya on his right. We should go before the police arrive, Kira said, glancing toward the sound of approaching sirens. Dr. O is going to want to hear about this. I'm coming too, Tayuya stated, not a question but a declaration. When Kira looked like she might object, the redhead continued, I didn't cross dimensions just to be left behind now. Besides, my sound abilities might be useful against whatever the hell the thing was. She has a point, Naruto said to Kira. And we could use all the help we can get. Kira sighed, relenting. Fine, but drive. O makes the final call. As they made their way toward a side exit, avoiding the approaching emergency responders. Naruto felt both exhilarated and troubled by what had transpired. The Golden Dragon's power was incredible, beyond anything he'd experienced, even with Kurama. But with that power came responsibility and, apparently, a cosmic-level threat that endangered not just one world but many. Just when he thought his life couldn't get any more complicated. You chose this path long ago, Kit. Kurama reminded him with unusual gentleness. The path of the Protector. This is merely a wider battlefield. Indeed, the dragon agreed. And you will not face it alone. The Y. LO1's energy resonates with ours, a connection forged across dimensions and time. Together with your fox spirit, we form a triad of power that even Xanazoth must respect. Naruto glanced at Kira, as they hurried through the mall's service corridors. She caught his look and raised an eyebrow questioningly. What? She asked. Nothing, he replied, managing a tired smile. Just thinking that normal is definitely overrated. For the first time since he'd met her, Kira laughed, a genuine sound that somehow cut through the weight of cosmic threats and dimensional wars. Welcome to Ranger life, ninja boy. Normal left the building a long time ago. From his other side, Tayuya snorted. Like either of you bastards ever knew Normal to begin with. As they emerged into the California sunshine, sirens wailing behind them, Naruto realized she was right. Normal had never been his destiny, not as a Jinchuriki, not as a shinobi, and certainly not as the newly awakened Golden Dragon Ranger. And somehow, he was okay with that. Chapter 2 End Chapter 3, Scales of Truth. Reefside High School buzzed with the familiar Monday morning chaos, locker doors slamming, sneakers squeaking against linoleum. Hundreds of teenage conversations creating a wall of sound that ebbed and flowed like an indoor ocean. For most students, it was just another week of classes, social drama, and countdown minutes until freedom. For Naruto Uzumaki, interdimensional shinobi and newly awakened Golden Dragon Ranger, it was possibly the most bewildering mission of his 17 years. Remember, Kira muttered as they approached the main entrance. You're Naruto Uzumaki, exchange student from Japan. You're staying with Dr. Oliver as part of the cultural exchange program. You speak English because you studied it extensively in Tokyo. Tokyo, Naruto repeated, adjusting the unfamiliar weight of a backpack filled with textbooks. Right, and try not to mention anything about ninjas, chakra, dimensional travel, or giant fox spirits sealed inside you. That still leaves dragons, right? He asked with a half-serious grin. Kira rolled her eyes but couldn't quite suppress an answering smile. Just act normal. Define normal, came a sarcastic voice from behind them. Chiyuya approached, looking thoroughly uncomfortable in the earth-clothing drive. Oliver had procured for her black jeans, a burgundy t-shirt, and a gray hoodie. Her red hair was pulled back in a ponytail, emphasizing sharp features set in a perpetual scowl. The former sound ninja had spent the night at Haley's place, after much debate about what to do with their second interdimensional visitor. Unlike Naruto, she hadn't been chosen by ancient spirits or transformed into a power-armored warrior. But her sound-based abilities and knowledge of the shinobi world made her valuable enough to keep close rather than turn away. That, and the fact that no one quite trusted what she might do if left unsupervised in a strange dimension. You look thrilled to be here, Kira observed dryly. Chiyuya's scowl deepened. Remind me why I need to attend this civilian indoctrination center. Because Drive O pulled strings to get you enrolled as Naruto's Kusen from the same exchange program, and we need to keep an eye on both of you, Kira replied, shepherding them through the doors. Besides, dimensional refugee isn't exactly a valid excuse for truancy. The hallways inside were even more chaotic. Students streaming in every direction, social clusters forming and dissolving like cellular organisms, the noise level rising to near painful heights. Naruto and Chiyuya both instinctively shifted closer to Kira, their shinobi senses overwhelmed by the sensory barrage. This is worse than a crowded market during festival season, Naruto muttered, wincing as someone's locker slammed particularly loudly nearby. And these people do this willingly, Chiyuya added, her hand twitching toward the concealed flute she'd refused to leave behind despite Haley's objections. Every day. Welcome to high school, Kira said with a hint of sympathy. American teenage purgatory, as they navigated toward the administrative office, where Naruto and Chiyuya would receive their schedules. A petite blonde with a determined expression and a camera-wielding companion intercepted them. Kira Ford, the blonde announced, thrusting a small recording device toward her face. Cassidy Cornell, Reefside High reporter. Care to comment on your connection to the mysterious new arrivals? Kira's expression shifted instantly to practiced indifference. They're exchange students. Cassidy. Dr. Oliver is hosting one, and his friend Haley is hosting the other. End of story. Cassidy's attention swiveled to Naruto, her journalistic instinct. T.S. clearly sensing more beneath the surface. And you are Naruto Uzumaki, he replied with a friendly smile that came easier than expected. After facing Madara Uchiha and dimensional monsters, an ambitious high school reporter seemed far less intimidating. Nice to meet you. Interesting name, Cassidy noted, her gaze analytical. Any relation to the mysterious golden warrior who appeared at Reefside Mall yesterday during what authorities are calling a gas leak incident? The question, delivered with surgical precision, caught all three of them off guard. Kira recovered first, her eyes narrowing. Seriously, Cassidy, he just got to town. How would he be connected to your latest conspiracy theory? Eyewitnesses described a blonde teenage boy who transformed into a golden armored figure, Cassidy persisted. Studying Naruto's reaction, right before the alleged gas leak that somehow blew out half the food court. Sounds like something from one of those Japanese cartoons, Tayuya interjected unexpectedly. Her tone dripping with dismissal. What are they called? Anime. People probably just panicked during the emergency and imagined things. Cassidy shifted her focus to Tayuya, clearly reassessing. And you are? Tayuya Uzumaki. The redhead replied smoothly, the life flowing naturally from years of undercover missions. Naruto's cousin. We're both part of the exchange program. Fascinating, Cassidy murmured, not sounding convinced. Her cameraman, Devon, lowered his equipment slightly as if sensing they weren't getting anywhere. As riveting as this interrogation is, Kira cut in. Checking the time on her phone, we need to get them to the office before first bell. I'm sure you'll have plenty of time to harass them later, Cassidy. Without waiting for a response, she guided Naruto and Tayuya around the persistent reporter and continued down the hallway. Once safely out of earshot, she exhaled sharply. Great, Cassidy's already connecting the dots. Between Naruto and the Golden Dragon Ranger. Is that bad? Naruto asked, glancing back at the blonde, who was now interviewing other students. Cassidy's been trying to uncover the Power Rangers' identities since day one. Kira explained. So far, she's been unsuccessful, but she's sharper than she gets credit for. We'll need to be careful around her. I could put her in a genjutsu, Tayuya offered casually. Make her forget what she saw. No mind manipulation, Kira said firmly. We have enough ethical gray areas already without adding that to the mix. They reached the office, Principal Randall, a stern woman with dark hair and piercing eyes, regarded the newcomers with thinly veiled suspicion. So these are Oliver's exchange students, she said, her voice carrying an edge that made both shinobi instinctively wary. How convenient that our science teacher has suddenly developed an interest in international education. Something about her demeanor triggered Naruto's well-honed instincts. The way she moved, the calculated assessment in her eyes, it reminded him of shinobi who lived double lives, concealing their true nature beneath civilian personas. She's not what she appears to be. Kurama rumbled within him, confirming his suspicions. Agreed, came the dragon's deeper voice, still strange to hear alongside the fox's more familiar tones. There is dimensional energy clinging to her form. Faint, but present. Naruto caught Tayuya's eye, a subtle glance that communicated his wariness. The redhead gave an almost imperceptible nod, she sensed it too. Principal Randall handed them their schedules with a tight smile that never reached her eyes. Welcome to Reefside High. I expect exemplary behavior from both of you. Dr. Oliver has vouched for your character. And I would hate for his judgment to be proven flawed. The threat beneath her polite words was unmistakable. Thank you, Principal Randall, Kira interjected with forced brightness. I'll make sure they know where everything is. As they left the office, Tayuya leaned in close to Naruto and Kira. That woman is dangerous, she whispered. Her chakra signature is wrong. Masked, somehow. Principal Randall has always been intense, but, Kira began. Not intense, Naruto corrected quietly. Predatory. Both Kurama and the dragon sensed something off about her. Some kind of dimensional energy. Kira's expression shifted from dismissal to concern. You think she's connected to Xanazoth? I don't know, Naruto admitted. But in my experience, when multiple dangerous things start happening at once, they're usually connected. The warning bell rang, sending students scurrying toward their classrooms. Kira glanced at their schedules, her frown deepening. They've put you in most of my classes, she noted. That's convenient. Too convenient, maybe. Paranoia is a shinobi's best friend, Tayuya remarked with grim satisfaction. Keeps you alive longer. Great, Kira muttered, as if high school wasn't stressful enough without interdimensional conspiracies. As they entered their first class, English literature with Mr. Richards, Naruto found himself scanning the room as he would an unfamiliar battlefield, noting exits, potential threats, defensive positions. Next to him, Tayuya was doing the same. The habits of trained warriors didn't disappear just because the setting changed from combat zones to classrooms. The morning passed in a blur of confusing terminology, strange customs, and bewildering social dynamics. Both shinobi struggled with NT aspects. Naruto with the academic content, having never been a stellar student at the academy, Chiyuya with the social niceties required when one couldn't simply threaten or intimidate others into compliance. By lunchtime, they were both mentally exhausted. How do people do this every day without going insane? Chiyuya demanded as they claimed a table in the corner of the cafeteria. That math class made cryptography training look straightforward. At least you understood the literature references, Naruto countered, poking dubiously at something the lunch lady had called tuna casserole. I didn't know half the words they were using. Focus on context, Chiyuya advised, surprising both Kira and Naruto with the genuinely helpful tip. When they stared, she shrugged defensively. What? Infiltration missions required rapid language adaptation. It's basic shinobi training. I guess I missed that class, Naruto admitted, rubbing the back of his neck sheepishly. I was more the punch first, ask questions later type of student. No kidding, Chiyuya snorted, though there was less bite in her tone than there might have been days earlier. Connor and Ethan joined them, sliding air trays onto the table with the casual confidence of athletes and established students. Connor eyed the newcomers with barely disguised skepticism, while Ethan's expression held more curiosity than suspicion. So, Connor said, lowering his voice, heard you two made quite an impression at the mall yesterday. That's one way of putting it, Kira replied dryly. Dr. O wants us all at the lab after school, Ethan informed them. His excitement barely contained. Haley thinks she's found something about the Golden Dragon in the archives. Archives? Naruto questioned. Ranger archives, Ethan clarified. Records of all known Power Ranger teams, their powers, enemies, battles, everything. If there's information about your dragon anywhere, that's where we'll find it. The conversation paused as a familiar blonde approached their table, cameraman in tow. Mind if I join you? Cassidy asked, though she was already setting her tray down before anyone could respond. I'm doing a feature on the cultural exchange program, and I'd love to get the perspective of our newest international students. The Rangers exchanged wary glances, while Naruto and Chiyuya shifted subtly into more defensive postures. We're kind of in the middle of something, Cassidy, Connor attempted. This will only take a minute, she insisted, pulling out a small notebook. So, Naruto, Chiyuya, what are your impressions of Reefside so far? Any major cultural differences you've noticed? The seemingly innocent question concealed a journalistic trap, any answer revealing too much unfamiliarity with modern life might confirm Cassidy's suspicions about their unusual origins. The food is weird, Naruto said honestly, gesturing to his tray. And everyone moves so slowly. Slowly, Cassidy repeated, intrigued. He means inefficiently, Chiyuya interjected smoothly. In Japan, there's more emphasis on direct purpose and efficiency. American high schools seem designed to waste time. Interesting observation, Cassidy noted, scribbling in her notebook. And how do you know Kira and Dr. Oliver? It seems convenient that you were immediately connected with them upon arrival. Exchange program matching algorithms, Ethan supplied, leveraging his tech expertise for a plausible explanation. They use personality profiles and interests to pair international students with compatible hosts. Dr. O's background in paleontology matched with Naruto's interest in, ancient cultures. And Haley has traveled extensively in Asia, Kira added, making her a good match for Chiyuya. Cassidy's eyes narrowed, not entirely convinced. And you two are cousins. You don't look alike. Different fathers, Chiyuya replied without hesitation. My mother married into the Uzumaki family. Where in Japan are you from, exactly? A small village outside Tokyo, Naruto said, repeating the cover story drive. Oliver had prepared. You wouldn't have heard of it. Try me, Cassidy challenged. I did a semester abroad in Japan last year. The tension at the table ratcheted up several notches. Konoha, Chiyuya stated confidently. It's in a remote valley, very traditional. Maintains many ancient practices, including martial arts training from an early age. Konoha, Cassidy repeated, writing it down. I don't recall. The bell signaling the end of lunch period interrupted her, bringing visible relief to the Rangers. Sorry, Cassidy, gotta run, Connor announced, standing quickly. Coach Timmons will bench me if I'm late for gym again. As the group gathered their things, Cassidy remained seated, studying her notes with a journalist's calculating gaze. "I'll catch up with you all later," she promised. "This feature is just getting started." Once safely in the hallway, Connor exhaled sharply. "That was close. She's like a bloodhound. She's going to be a problem," Tayuya assessed bluntly. "In my world, we'd have solutions for nosy civilians who endangered mission security." Quote, "We don't eliminate problems that way here," Kira said firmly. "We just need to be more careful. Or, Ethan suggested, we could feed her false leads. Keep her chasing conspiracies that go nowhere." "Not bad thinking, Blue Boy," Tayuya acknowledged with grudging respect. "Misdirection is cleaner than elimination anyway." Naruto, who had remained silent during this exchange, suddenly tensed. A familiar sensation washed over him, a pulse of energy that resonated with the dragon's power within. "Something's wrong," he murmured, stopping mid-stride. "The dragon is reacting to something." As if on cue, the building shook, a subtle tremor that most students attributed to a minor earthquake. But the Rangers knew better, their communicators chirping simultaneously moments later. "We've got trouble, Drive." Oliver's voice came through clearly despite the low volume. "Dimensional disturbance downtown. Meet at the lab as soon as you can slip away." The school day forgotten, they moved with precise efficiency toward the nearest exit, years of Ranger experience, or in the shinobi's case, combat training, kicking in. As they slipped through a rear door rarely monitored by faculty, none of T. Hem noticed the petite blonde reporter following at a careful distance, camera in hand and determination in her eyes. The underground lab beneath Drive. Oliver's home hummed with activity. Monitors displayed readings of the dimensional disturbance, a fluctuating rift similar to those that had brought Naruto and Tayuya to Earth, but larger, more stable, and apparently deliberate rather than random. "It's like someone punched a hole between dimensions," Haley explained, fingers flying across multiple keyboards as she analyzed incoming data. "And they're keeping it open intentionally." Dr. O. Liver studied the energy signature with a frown. "The pattern matches what we saw when Prismatex appeared, but amplified. Whatever's coming through, it's bigger than anything we've faced so far." "Xanazoth's sending another lieutenant," Naruto surmised, feeling both Kurama and the dragon stirring restlessly within him. "Probably to test the golden dragon power they witnessed yesterday. Which they now know you possess," Kira added. "Making you their primary target." Tayuya, who had been examining the lab's equipment with professional interest, turned toward the group. "So what's the plan? I assume you Ranger types have strategies for this kind of situation." "Normally, we'd morph and confront the threat directly," Connor explained, already reaching for his Dino morpher. "Assess its capabilities, find a weakness, exploit it." Quote, "That approach might be insufficient against Xanazoth's forces, Drive," Oliver cautioned. "These aren't Mesogog's mindless creations. They're dimensional entities with thousands, maybe millions of years of experience. Which is why we have our own dimensional allies," Ethan pointed out, gesturing toward Naruto and Tayuya. "What have you found about the Golden Dragon?" Naruto asked, eyeing the ancient scrolls spread across a nearby workstation. "If I'm going to use this power effectively, I need to understand it better." Dr. Oliver exchanged a glance with Haley before responding. "The archives mention the Golden Dragon as one of the original guardians of dimensional integrity. When the dinosaurs roamed both Earth and the elemental nations, which apparently existed as a single reality in prehistoric times, the Golden Dragon served as protector against threats from beyond normal space-time. When the dimensions began to separate naturally, the dragon's essence split as well." Haley continued, "It couldn't maintain a physical form across multiple realities, so it became a spiritual entity that could bond with worthy vessels when needed." Quote, "The last recorded Golden Dragon Ranger existed over 10,000 years ago," Dr. Oliver added. "A warrior named Ryujin who united multiple dimensions against Xanazoth's first attempt at universal consumption." "So I'm not the first," Naruto mused. "That's actually kind of reassuring." "Don't get too comfortable," Tayuya warned. "If this Xanazoth thing has been around that long and still exists, it means it either won or fought to a stalemate. Neither scenario is particularly encouraging for us." "Actually," Haley interjected, pointing to a section of text, "according to this, Ryujin man aged to imprison Xanazoth in the void between dimensions. The prison was supposed to last eternity, but nothing lasts forever. Drive. Oliver finished grimly. Especially dimensional barriers, which we know have been weakening recently. Kira, who had been studying a different monitor showing the downtown disturbance, suddenly straightened. It's getting bigger. Whatever's coming through is almost here. Then we move now, Connor decided, shifting into leadership mode. Doctor, oh, you and Haley keep working on the research. The rest of us will confront this thing before it can damage the city. I'm coming too, Chiyuya stated, not a request but a declaration. My sound techniques can disrupt dimensional energies. I proved that tracking Fox Boy here. We could use all the help we can get, Ethan agreed. Looking to Connor for confirmation. The Red Ranger hesitated, then nodded. Fine, but you follow our lead. We have more experience with these kinds of threats. Chiyuya's expert, Seijin suggested she had plenty to say about that assessment, but she merely nodded curtly. Let's go, Naruto said, already moving toward the exit. The dragon's energy pulsed within him, responding to the dimensional threat with ancient purpose. Time to see what this golden dragon power can really do. Downtown Reefside had been evacuated, police barricades establishing a perimeter around the plaza where the dimensional rift pulsated like a wound in reality. Iridescent energy spilled from its edges, distorting the air and causing nearby streetlights to flicker erratically. The Rangers arrived on their raptor cycles, with Naruto riding behind Kira and Chiyuya behind Ethan. They dismounted at the perimeter, already morphed except for Naruto, who had yet to fully understand how to act. I've the golden dragon power voluntarily. Remember, the Black Ranger cautioned, we assess first. Don't engage until we know what we're dealing with. Too late for that, Connor replied, pointing toward the rift. The dimensional tear widened suddenly, edges peeling back like the petals of some unearthly flower. From within its depths emerged a figure that seemed to defy conventional physics. A humanoid shape composed of constantly shifting geometric patterns, each surface reflecting light in impossible ways. Where prismatex had been crystalline, this entity was mathematical precision given form. Angles and curves moving in patterns that hurt the human eye to follow. Greetings, defenders of this reality, the being announced, its voice modulating between octaves as it spoke. I am Geometrox, Herald of Equations, Lieutenant to the Great Devourer Xanazoth. They really love their dramatic introductions, don't they? Kira muttered, Terra grips already in hand. Geometrox's attention fixed on Naruto, who stood unmorphed among the Rangers. Ah, the vessel. My predecessor's data was accurate. You have indeed bonded with the golden dragon essence. How? Mathematically improbable. What do you want? Connor demanded, stepping forward as team leader. Want? Such a simple concept for beings of limited dimensional perspective, Geometrox replied, geometric patterns accelerating across its surface. Xanazoth does not want. He calculates, consumes, and integrates. Your reality is merely one variable in a cosmic equation of power. Great, an interdimensional math teacher, Ethan quipped. That's all we needed. Naruto stepped forward, feeling the dragon's energy stirring more strongly in response to the herald's presence. If Xanazoth sent you for me, here I am. Leave this dimension out of it. Geometrox's form reconfigured, angles shifting to approximate what might have been amusement. Noble but naive, vessel. The dimensional barriers thin exponentially now. This reality, the shinobi reality. All realities will soon factor into the master's equation. With a gesture that defied Euclidean geometry, Geometrox summoned dozens of minions, creatures composed of living mathematical symbols that moved with perfect, calculated precision. Equation soldiers, solve for x, where x equals the complete subjugation of these defenders, the herald commanded. The Ol surged forward in coordinated attack patterns, forcing the Rangers to scatter. Connor engaged the nearest cluster with his Tyranno staff, while Ethan deployed his Tricera shield to block a barrage of energy projectiles. Kira used her enhanced agility to evade and strike from unexpected angles, her Terra scream disorienting several enemies at once. Chiyuya, standing slightly apart, raised her flute to her lips and began to play. The melody was different from what Naruto had heard before, sharper, more dissonant, specifically tuned to disrupt the mathematical harmony of Geometrox's minions. Several equation soldiers nearest her stumbled, their symbolic forms wavering as the sound interfered with whatever dimensional energy maintained their coherence. Interesting variable, Geometrox observed, adjusting its form to counter the sound waves. But ultimately insufficient to change the outcome. The herald extended what approximated an arm, firing a beam of concentrated mathematical energy directly at Tayuya. Naruto reacted instantly, diving toward her and pushing them both out of the beam's path. The attack struck a parked car instead, instantly reducing it to a perfect cube of compressed metal. That was too close, Naruto muttered, helping Tayuya to her feet. I had it under control, she insisted, though her expression suggested otherwise. Time to even the odds, Naruto decided, focusing inward where the golden dragon's energy waited. Unlike his normal chakra, which responded instantly to his will, this power seemed to have its own awareness, its own conditions for activation. How do I transform? Intent and need, the dragon's voice rumbled within him. You must fully commit to becoming my vessel, not merely channel my power. Understanding flashed through Naruto. Unlike Ranger morphing or even his Nine Tails chakra mode, this transformation required a deeper connection, a true partnership between vessel and spirit. I accept, he whispered, closing his eyes briefly. Golden Dragon Spirit, awaken. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Golden energy erupted from within him, encasing his body in light that solidified into the distinctive armor he'd manifested at the mall. But this time, being fully conscious of the transformation, Naruto could feel the changes more completely, the enhanced sensory perception, the dimensional awareness that allowed him to perceive Geometrox's true nature beyond physical form, the connection to ancient power that had existed since the dawn of the multiverse. When the transformation completed, the Golden Dragon Ranger stood ready, armor gleaming in the afternoon sunlight. The equation adjusts, Geometrox noted, its patterns accelerating further. The Golden Dragon variable is now active, and about to solve for your defeat. Naruto replied, instinctively summoning a weapon he hadn't known he possessed, a staff topped with a dragon's head, golden energy crackling along its length. The dragon staff felt natural in his hands, as though he'd trained with it for years rather than discovering it seconds ago. He charged forward, moving faster than normal human perception could track. The staff connected with Geometrox's form, golden energy disrupting the mathematical patterns momentarily. The herald staggered, its perfect symmetry briefly compromised. Impossible, it hissed, reconfiguring rapidly. Your integration with the dragon essence is incomplete. You cannot access its full-dimensional disruption capabilities yet. Maybe not, Naruto acknowledged, spinning the staff to deflect a counterattack. But I've got other tricks. Drawing on his shinobi training, he formed a familiar hand sign while maintaining his grip on the staff. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 5 perfect copies of the Golden Dragon Ranger appeared, each armed with an identical dragon staff. They surrounded Geometrox in a coordinated attack pattern that the herald's calculations evidently hadn't anticipated. Multiple variables. Geometrox's form flickered with what might have been confusion. This defies the established parameters of Ranger capabilities. That's because he's not just a Ranger, Kira called out as she dispatched another equation soldier. He's a shinobi too. The clones attacked simultaneously, striking from different angles. Each impact disrupted Geometrox's mathematical cohesion further, forcing the herald to divert energy to maintaining its form rather than attacking. Meanwhile, the other Rangers and Tayuya were steadily reducing the number of equation soldiers. Connor and Etha N had developed an effective tandem approach, Connor's aggressive staff strikes driving the enemies into Ethan's shield bashes. Kira provided aerial support, her Terra wings allowing her to strike from above with precision. And Tayuya's disruptive melodies continued to weaken the mathematical constructs, making them vulnerable to conventional attacks. For a moment, victory seemed within reach. Then Geometrox recalculated. Insufficient data led to erroneous conclusions, the herald announced, its form suddenly pulsing with intense energy. Adjusting approach. The wave of mathematical force that exploded outward dispelled all of Naruto's shadow clones instantly and sent the Rangers flying backward. Only Tayuya, who had been furthest from the herald, managed to remain standing, though she staggered under the energy wave's impact. Your combined capabilities exceed initial calculations, Geometrox acknowledged, advancing on Naruto, who struggled to regain his footing. But the Master's equations account for all variables eventually. The Herald's form shifted again, resolving into something more solid, more combat-oriented, a geometric warrior with blade-like appendages that gleamed with dimensional energy. The vessel must be tested fully, it declared, charging toward Naruto with impossible speed. The Golden Dragon Ranger barely raised his staff in time to block the first strike. The impact reverberated through his armor, stronger than anything he'd experienced outside of his most intense shinobi battles. Naruto, Kira called out, attempting to intervene but finding her path blocked by a fresh wave of equation soldiers that materialized between her and the main battle. The other rangers faced similar obstacles. The Herald had deliberately isolated Naruto, forcing him to confront this new enhanced form alone. Geometrox pressed its advantage, each strike precisely calculated to exploit weaknesses in Naruto's defenses. Despite his combat experience, Naruto found himself giving ground. The Herald's mathematical precision overcoming his more instinctive fighting style. Your integration is flawed, Geometrox observed as their weapons locked. You rely too heavily on shinobi techniques rather than embracing the dragon's dimensional capabilities. A powerful blow knocked the dragon staff from Naruto's hands, sending it clattering across the plaza. Before he could recover, Geometrox landed a direct hit to his chest, cracking the golden armor and sending him crashing into a concrete planter. The Master will be disappointed, the Herald continued, advancing slowly. Savoring its apparent victory, he expected more from the vessel chosen by his ancient enemy. Pain radiated through Naruto's body, the golden dragon armor responding sluggishly to his commands. Inside his mindscape, he could feel both Kurama and the dragon stirring with concern. The Herald speaks partial truth, the dragon admitted reluctantly. Our integration is incomplete. You fight as a shinobi wearing my power rather than as a true golden dragon ranger. Then what should I do? Naruto demanded, desperation edging his thoughts as Geometrox approached. Trust. Came the simple reply. As you learn to trust the fox, now trust me. Our powers must flow together, not separately. Understanding flashed through Naruto. He had been treating the golden dragon power as he once had Kurama's, as something separate, something to draw upon rather than merge with. Even after accepting the dragon's spirit, he had maintained that separation. As Geometrox raised its blade-like arm for a finishing blow, Naruto closed his eyes behind his helmet and released his mental barriers. The effect was instantaneous and transformative. Golden energy surged through his entire being, not just empowering his physical form but enhancing his perception, his understanding. Suddenly, he could see Geometrox's attacks before they happened, not through prediction but through a higher dimensional awareness that transcended linear time. When the Herald's blade descended, Naruto was no longer there. He moved with newfound grace that combined shinobi agility with the dragon's dimensional capabilities. Seeming to step partially between realities as he evaded. Recalculating, Geometrox muttered, its attacks growing increasingly desperate as Naruto evaded each one with apparent ease. The dragon staff flew back to Naruto's hand of its own accord, responding to his heightened connection with the dragon spirit. This time, when he wielded it, golden flame-like energy engulfed the weapon entirely. My turn, Naruto said, his voice carrying the dual resonance of human and dragon. He moved forward in a series of strikes that defied conventional physics, the staff passing through Geometrox's defenses as though they didn't exist. Each impact left burning golden energy that disrupted the Herald's mathematical cohesion from within. Impossible, Geometrox protested, its form beginning to destabilize. Your integration cannot have progressed this rapidly. You calculated wrong, Naruto replied, channeling both chakra and dragon energy into the staff for a final strike. I've had years of experience sharing my being with a powerful spirit. The learning curve isn't as steep as you thought. The dragon staff plunged directly into the center of Geometrox's form, golden energy expanding outward from the point of impact. The Herald's geometric patterns accelerated to blinding speed, trying desperately to reconfigure around the disruption. The Master will adjust the equation. Geometrox managed as its form began to dissolve into mathematical symbols that scattered like ash in the wind. This is merely one iteration. With a final flash of light, the herald disappeared completely. The remaining equation soldiers dissolved simultaneously, leaving the rangers standing amid the destruction of the battle. The dimensional rift pulsed once more, then collapsed in on itself, sealing with a sound like thunder. Silence fell across the plaza. Naruto's enhanced armor faded, returning to its basic form as he dropped to one knee, exhaustion washing over him. Deeper integration with the dragon spirit had granted him incredible power, but at a significant energy cost. The other rangers rushed to his side, with Kira reaching him first. "Are you okay?" she asked, concern evident even through her helmet. "Yeah," Naruto managed, accepting her help to stand. "Just drained. That was more intense than I expected." "That was incredible," Ethan enthused. "The way you moved at the end, like you were partially phasing between dimensions." "That's exactly what he was doing, Drive." Oliver's voice came through their communicators. "We monitored the entire battle from the lab. Naruto, you tapped into the Golden Dragon's dimensional shifting abilities, something the archives said was only possible with complete integration." "It's not complete yet," Naruto replied, feeling the dragon's agreement within him. "But we're getting there." Chiyuya approached, her usual scowl tempered by what might have been respect. "Not bad, Fox Boy. Though you cut it closer than I'd have liked. Says the one who almost got geometrized into a cube," Naruto retorted, though there was no real heat in his words. Connor surveyed the battle-damaged plaza with a leader's concern for collateral consequences. "We should get out of here before emergency services arrive. The press will be all over this." As if summoned by his words, the distant wail of sirens became audible, growing steadily louder. "Back to the lab, Doctor," Oliver instructed through their communicators. "We need to analyze what happened and prepare for the next attack. This victory feels too easy." As the Rangers remounted their Raptor cycles, none of them noticed the small drone hovering near a damaged storefront, its camera lens zooming in on their departing figures before focusing specifically on the Golden Dragon Ranger. In Mesogog's lair, Elsa watched the footage with growing interest. "The Golden Warrior has abilities beyond normal Ranger parameters," she reported. "Dimensional manipulation, energy projection, duplication capabilities." "Yes," Mesogog hissed, his reptilian eyes fixed on the images. "And his power signature resonates with the artifacts we recovered from the ancient temple. There is a connection we must explore. Shall I prepare an acquisition team?" Elsa asked eagerly. "Not yet," Mesogog decided. "Let Xanazoth's forces test him further. Each battle yields more of his capabilities, information we can use when the time comes to claim his power for ourselves." The reptilian villain turned away from the monitors, moving to a containment unit where a small fragment of golden material pulsed with energy that matched the Golden Dragon Ranger's signature, a scale, recovered from the site of an archaeological dig months before the Rangers had even formed. "Soon," Mesogog promised the artifact, "soon all-dimensional power will fuel the prehistoric renaissance. Xanazoth and the Rangers are merely players in a game they do not yet comprehend." Unaware of Mesogog's observations or plans, the Rangers regrouped in Dr. Oliver's underground lab. Naruto sat on an examination table as Haley scanned him with various devices, measuring the aftereffects of his enhanced transformation. "The energy signatures are fascinating," she reported, studying the readings. "When you fully integrated with the dragon spirit, your dimensional resonance frequency shifted to match what we're seeing in the rifts themselves. It's like you temporarily existed in multiple realities simultaneously." "It felt like that," Naruto confirmed, wincing slightly as she attached another sensor to his temple. "Like I could see everything from multiple angles at once, past, present, and potential futures all layered together. That's consistent with what the archives say about Golden Dragon abilities, Drive," Oliver noted, scrolling through ancient text on a nearby monitor. "The original dragons existed beyond linear time, perceiving reality as a simultaneous whole rather than a sequence of events. Which explains how you anticipated Geometrox's attacks," Ethan theorized. "You weren't predicting them, you were actually seeing them before they happened." Connor, who had been uncharacteristically quiet since their return, finally spoke up. That kind of power could be game-changing against both Xanazoth and Mesogog. But there's a problem. What problem? Kira asked, though her tone suggested she already knew what he was thinking. Integration, Connor replied simply. We fought well individually today, but as a team. He shook his head. We were completely uncoordinated, everyone doing their own thing rather than working together. The Red Ranger's assessment is accurate, Tayuya stated, surprising everyone with her agreement. In the Sound 4, we trained extensively to synchronize our techniques. Today's battle showed no such coordination. That's because we've never trained with either of you, Kira pointed out. Naruto's powers are completely new, and Tayuya just arrived yesterday. Of course we're not perfectly synchronized yet, which is exactly why we need to establish a proper training regimen, drive. Oliver decided, Xanazoth's forces will only get stronger, and we need to be prepared. I can help with that, Tayuya offered unexpectedly. When everyone turned to look at her in surprise, she elaborated, sound-based genjutsu. You requires precise timing and coordination. I can develop training exercises that synchronize everyone's movements through musical cues. That's actually a really good idea, Haley acknowledged, looking at the former sound ninja with newfound respect. Don't sound so surprised, Tayuya retorted, though with less hostility than her words suggested. I was an elite guard for a reason, even if my former boss was a megalomaniacal snake bastard. Naruto and I have a natural resonance through our powers, Kira added thoughtfully. We could use that as a foundation to extend coordination to the whole team. Naruto nodded in agreement, but his expression remained troubled. There's something else we need to discuss. Principal Randall. Doctor. Oliver's attention sharpened. What about her? Both Kurama and the dragon sensed dimensional energy around her, Naruto explained. Different from Xanazoth's signature, but definitely not normal human energy either. The Black Ranger exchanged a significant look with Haley. We've always had suspicions about Randall. Her appearance coincided too neatly with Mesogog's emergence, and her background checks out a little too perfectly. You think she's working for Mesogog? Connor asked, alarm evident in his voice. Or she might be Mesogog, Ethan suggested grimly. We know he has human form sometimes. Either way, we need to be careful around her, drive. Oliver cautioned. If she's connected to Mesogog, and she's taking special interest in Naruto and Tayuya, then we potentially have enemies on two fronts, Kira finished. Xanazoth from one direction, Mesogog from the other, and let's not forget Cassidy, Ethan added. She's getting dangerously close to uncovering our identities. If she connects Naruto to the Golden Dragon Ranger, I'll handle Cassidy, Naruto decided, surprising everyone. I think I have an approach that might work. Before he could elaborate, the lab's alert system activated, a different tone from the dimensional breach warnings they'd heard earlier. Someone's approaching the house, Haley announced, checking the security monitors. It's Cassidy Cornell. Speak of the devil, Connor muttered. On the monitor, they could see Cassidy walking determinedly up the driveway, camera in hand. She paused to check what appeared to be a tracking device, then continued toward the front door. How did she find this place? Kira demanded. And what is she holding? Ethan leaned closer to the screen, eyes widening in recognition. That's an energy signature tracker. Homebrew, but effective. I recognize the design from the tech forums. She's tracking dimensional energy, Haley realized. The residual signature from Naruto and Tayuya coming and going from here. I told you she was going to be a problem. Tayuya said grimly. Doctor. Oliver made a quick decision. Connor, Ethan, Kira, upstairs, act normal, like you're just visiting for study group. Haley and I will secure the lab. Naruto. Tayuya. You said you wanted to handle Cassidy. Now's your chance. As the others rushed to their positions, Naruto and Tayuya shared a determined look. What exactly is your plan for handling this reporter? Tayuya asked quietly. Naruto's expression shifted to a familiar mixture of confidence and mischief that had once defined him before the weight of war and responsibility had tempered his personality. The truth, he replied simply, or at least, enough of it to satisfy her curiosity without revealing everything. That's either brilliant or suicidal, Tayuya assessed. I'm not sure which yet. Sometimes the best place to hide a secret is in plain sight, Naruto countered. Trust me. The doorbell rang, its ordinary sound incongruous with the tension of the moment. As the Y moved upstairs to confront the persistent reporter, neither shinobi fully realized how this encounter would reshape the delicate balance they were trying to maintain between worlds, identities, and growing threats. Some truths, once revealed, could never be contained again. The living room of Dr. Oliver's home presented a carefully orchestrated scene of normalcy, textbooks spread across the coffee table. Half-empty soda cans strategically placed, music playing softly from speakers. Connor and Ethan lounged on the couch, pretending to argue about a homework problem, while Kira sat cross-legged on the floor. Guitar beside her as though she'd been practicing between study sessions. When Dr. Oliver opened the door to reveal Cassidy and her ever-present cameraman Devin, the scene was complete. Just a teacher hosting a study group for his students, nothing unusual or Ranger-related whatsoever. Ms. Cornell, Drive, Oliver greeted with carefully measured surprise. What brings you to my home unannounced? Cassidy's determined expression faltered momentarily at the mundane tableau before her. She glanced down at her tracking device, which continued to indicate strong energy readings from this location. Then back at the seemingly ordinary gathering. Dr. Oliver, she began, recovering quickly. I'm doing an investigative piece on unusual energy patterns around Reefside, and my equipment led me here. Would you care to comment on why your home appears to be a hotspot for the same energy signature detected at recent monster attacks? Before Drive, Oliver could respond, Naruto stepped into view, Yuya close behind. That would be because of us, Naruto said casually, as though admitting to something completely innocuous. Cassidy's eyes widened, her journalistic instincts immediately on high alert. You, the exchange students, may I? Naruto asked Drive, Oliver, gesturing toward Cassidy's tracking device. When the Black Ranger nodded, albeit with visible apprehension, Naruto approached the reporter. Your device is picking up residual energy from this, he explained, pulling something from his pocket, a small, crystalline fragment that pulsed with golden light when he held it. In reality, it was a piece of the dragon staff that he had mentally commanded to detach, a capability he'd only discovered during the battle with Geometrox. What is that? Cassidy asked, Ca. Mara immediately focusing on the glowing object. An artifact from our village, Naruto explained, the partial truth flowing easily. Our family has been custodians of these crystals for generations. They're said to resonate with certain energies. The same energies present at the monster attacks, Cassidy noted, putting pieces together rapidly but arriving at the conclusion Naruto was carefully directing her toward. We believe so, Yuya interjected smoothly, falling into the role of co-conspirator. That's the real reason we're here in Reefside. Our village elders detected unusual activity that matched our crystal's energy signature. You're not really exchange students, Cassidy realized, excitement building in her expression. You're investigating the monster attacks. We couldn't reveal our true purpose publicly, Naruto confirmed, managing to look appropriately secretive. The crystals are sacred to our people, and their connection to these dimensional disturbances is complicated. Cassidy's reporter instincts warred visibly with her excitement at being given what appeared to be an exclusive scoop. And the Golden Warrior that witnesses reported. The one who appeared at both the mall and downtown today. Naruto hesitated, as if considering how much to reveal, then sighed dramatically. The crystals can temporarily enhance the abilities of trained users. What people saw was the result of emergency defensive measures. You're saying you know who the Golden Warrior is? Cassidy pressed, camera still rolling. I'm saying that our village has traditions dating back thousands of years involving these crystals and the entities they can help combat, Naruto replied carefully. Dr. Oliver, as both a scientist and an expert in ancient cultures, has been helping us understand the connection between our traditions and what's happening in Reefside. So that's why you're staying with him, Cassidy concluded, fitting pieces into the narrative Naruto was constructing. And why you arrived right when these new attacks began. Exactly, Naruto confirmed, returning the crystal fragment to his pocket. Now you understand why we had to maintain our cover as exchange students. Cassidy looked like she'd discovered the story of a lifetime, which, in a way, she had, just not the one she thought. This is incredible. Ancient crystals, dimensional entities, secret investigators from Japan. My viewers will be riveted. Ms. Cornell, Drive, Oliver interjected, assuming his authoritative teacher persona. While I appreciate your enthusiasm for journalism, I need to emphasize the sensitivity of this situation. Publicizing too much could create panic or interfere with ongoing investigation. But I have to report something, Cassidy protested. This is too big to ignore. What if, Naruto suggested, you had exclusive access to information about these events, provided you work with us on what gets released and when? Cassidy's expression shifted from disappointment to calculated interest. An exclusive arrangement. You're clearly resourceful, Naruto acknowledged, gesturing to her homemade tracking device. And persistent. Rather than having you work against us, why not work with us? Report on what happens, but with context we provide. The reporter considered this for a long moment, journalistic ethics battling with opportunity. I would need editorial independence. She stipulated. I won't just be a mouthpiece. Of course, Naruto agreed readily. Just consultation on timing and sensitive details. You get the exclusive story as it unfolds. The other Rangers watched this negotiation with varying degrees of amazement and concern. Hira caught Naruto's eye briefly, her expression a mixture of incredulity and reluctant admiration for his audacious approach. Deal, Cassidy finally decided, extending her hand. I want an interview, on camera, explaining these crystals and your village's connection to them. Nothing classified, just the basics people should know. Naruto shook her hand, sealing the arrangement. We can do that, tomorrow, after school. Perfect, Cassidy beamed, already envisioning her career advancement. This is going to put Reefside Report on the map. As Dr. Oliver escorted the satisfied reporter and her cameraman back to the door, the others remained frozen in a tableau of disbelief. You just. Connor began once the door closed. Recruit our most persistent investigator as an unwitting ally. Yes, he did, Tayuya finished, regarding Naruto with newfound appreciation. That's some high-level infiltration tactics. Fox boy, I'm impressed. It's brilliant, Ethan admitted. Feed her just enough truth to satisfy her curiosity while redirecting from the whole Ranger angle. Keep her close enough to monitor what she discovers, Kira added, still processing the implications. Plus, if she's reporting what we tell her, we control the public narrative about these attacks, Connor realized. That could actually help with evacuation efforts and reducing panic. Dr. Oliver returned to the group, expression caught between concern and reluctant admiration. That was either the most reckless or most brilliant move I've seen in my years as a ranger. Possibly both. Sometimes the direct approach works best, Naruto said with a modest shrug. Cassidy was going to keep digging no matter what. This way, we channel that energy in a direction we can manage. What about this interview tomorrow? Kira asked. What exactly are you planning to tell her? The truth. Just not all of it, Naruto replied. Ancient crystals connected to dimensional entities is actually accurate. We just won't mention that one of those entities is currently bonded with me, or that you're all Power Rangers. We'll need to coordinate our story carefully, Drive. Oliver cautioned. One inconsistency, and Cassidy will be right back to investigating us directly. Leave that to me, Tayuya offered unexpectedly. Crafting and maintaining cover stories was my specialty in the Sound 4. I'll create a narrative framework with just enough verifiable details to be convincing. The group descended back to the lab, where Haley had been monitoring the entire conversation through hidden microphones. She greeted them with a mixture of relief and lingering concern. That was impressive improvisation, she acknowledged. But we've still got bigger problems. The energy readings from today's battle indicate that Xanazoth's influence is growing stronger. The dimensional barriers are deteriorating faster than we initially calculated. How much time do we have? Naruto asked, the weight of responsibility settling back onto his shoulders. Haley's expression was grim as she tee up a simulation on the main screen, a model showing multiple dimensions represented as overlapping spheres, with fracture-like patterns spreading across their boundaries. At the current rate of deterioration, a few weeks, maybe a month before the barriers become so weak that full-scale invasion becomes possible. A month to master the Golden Dragon powers, integrate our fighting styles, deal with Mesogog's inevitable interest in dimensional technology, and prevent the potential collapse of multiple realities, Connor summarized. No pressure. We should begin training immediately, Tayuya insisted. Every day counts. Agreed. Drive, Oliver said. But we also need more information. The archives mention an artifact called the Dragon's Eye, a crystalline orb that Ryujin used to stabilize dimensional barriers temporarily. If we could locate it, then we'd have a way to buy more time, Naruto concluded. Where would we even start looking for something like that? Actually, Haley interjected, there's an exhibit opening at the Reefside Museum next week, Mysteries of Ancient Asia. One of the artifacts is a crystalline sphere discovered in a remote Japanese temple that dates back over 10,000 years. That timing can't be coincidental, Kira observed. Xanazoth's forces appearing just as a potential dimensional stabilizer is being publicly exhibited. It's either incredible luck or part of someone's plan, Connor agreed. Either way, we need to check it out. As the team began strategizing their approach to both training and investigating the museum exhibit, Naruto found himself momentarily overwhelmed by the rapidly escalating situation. In just 3 days, he had traveled between dimensions, discovered an ancient dragon spirit bonded to his soul, gained new powers, fought 2-dimensional heralds, enrolled in high school, and established a cover story with a persistent reporter. Even by his standards, it was a lot to process. He felt a presence beside him and turned to find Kira watching him with perceptive eyes. You holding up okay? She asked quietly, while the others debated training schedules. Yeah, he replied automatically, then reconsidered. Actually, no, this is a lot, even for someone who grew up with a 9-tailed fox inside them and fought in a ninja war. Kira's expression softened slightly. For what it's worth, I think you're handling it amazingly well. Most people would have completely freaked out by now. Most people haven't had your kind of life either, Naruto pointed out. Being a Power Ranger isn't exactly normal. True, she acknowledged with a small smile. I guess we're both members of the "My Teenage Years Are Weird as Hell" club. Despite everything, Naruto found himself returning her smile. There was something about Kira's direct, unvarnished perspective that cut through the cosmic complexity of their situation, grounding it in human terms he could relate to. The weirdest part, he admitted, is that I'm starting to think all this happened for a reason. Like I was meant to find that dimensional rift, meant to come here. The dragon choosing you isn't random, Kira agreed. And the way our powers resonate, that can't be coincidence. Before Naruto could respond, their conversation was interrupted by an alert from the monitoring system, another dimensional fluctuation, smaller than before but with a distinctive energy signature. It's in the forest, about 2 miles from here, Haley reported, checking the coordinates. Xanazoth again, Connor asked, already reaching for his morpher. No, Naruto replied, sensing the energy through his connection with the dragon. This feels different, familiar. It's from our world, Tayuya confirmed, her expression sharpening with recognition. That's a shinobi chakra signature. The implications hung in the air for a moment before drive. Oliver voiced what they were all thinking. Someone else is coming through from the elemental nations. As the team prepared to investigate this new arrival, Naruto found himself caught between hope and concern. Another familiar face from home could be a welcome ally, or a dangerous complication in an already precarious situation. Either way, the scales of truth were shifting, balancing between worlds and responsibilities with each new development. And somehow, he had become the fulcrum upon which that balance rested. Chapter 3 End. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.